nice to be here today with everybody. We've already done the adequate notice, and I think we've already done the roll call, right? So I think we're just going to go into my comments to kind of start us off. So first, I just want to kind of say this is the second day with mask optional. So it's good to see people's faces, and you know, for those people that are wearing masks, you know, I hope everybody's being respectful to each other and making sure that everybody's, you know, looking out for everybody's feelings and sensitivities and accepting everybody's position on it. So I hope that that's working out okay. I just wanted to say last night we had our strategic planning session, the first one for the community to participate, and it's one of 3. So anybody that is listening can participate and come to the meeting. But it was a good discussion. It's the start of our 5-year planning process, and so I thought it was good. There was some great penmanship on display, which you know, being as a chemistry major, chemistry majors have incredibly bad handwriting. So I really was very appreciative of the whole thing. So. One of the groups, the orange group, got a little out of hand, but I couldn't reach for the gavel fast enough to do something about it, so we let that kind of go. So
spirit.
whoever's at that table, you should apologize.
School spirit.
Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Yeah. So I do want to say, so last meeting we had, you know, a lot of robust conversation, and at some point it got a little out of hand. So I do know that when we're talking, we're going through things. And first of all, I think Natalie could nod her head on this. I'm one of the prior to this, I was one of the worst offenders of interrupting people, right? But let's do our best to not interrupt, okay? And also, when you have your hand up, I'm gonna see you. There aren't so many people where I can't keep track of who had their hand up first. So once you put your hand up and I kind of recognize you, you can just, you don't have to keep it up. I don't want the person talking to feel like that they're being rushed either, you know, and going through it, okay? And you know, let's just kind of keep exhibiting good decorum, and hopefully things will get out of hand. Let me just recognize you before the next time you talk, all right? And then we can have it be kind of going the orderly thing. So. There was a lot of good discussion. I think a lot of good things came from it, but I think we could do better than that. The other part is that today I was at a nice session with the Greater Ocean Township Chamber of Commerce, and there was a lot of nice things that were discussed. There was some people who got recognized, and actually there was Nicole Mora got recognized for being an unsung hero for kind of helping with the scholarship process for this organization, which I thought was a nice award. And our technology team also got recognized. So we took some pictures and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun. And then some great, there was also some very emotional stories by people also, you know, people who donated to our school district and people who helped the community out from the medical side. So I thought those were very nice. And there was also scholarships that were given out, and all great stories. And there were, you know, people from our district. And now, by the way, I do know that there's a lot of scholarships given out by a lot of people to a lot of times, and not every time does it get recognized. But it was for me, because I was there, I felt like I wanted to at least recognize these people in front of public. Okay, so this is not to say all the other scholarships that people get and not being recognized is not also valuable.
I just recognizing the graduate.
Right. I just want to make sure that we were doing something here. So Nora Abdulaziz was recognized, Glenn Johnson, Tori Lee, and Carmela Bertini were some of the people that were recognized, and they had some nice backgrounds and stuff. So I want to just kind of congratulate them. Okay. And the food was good too. So I think that's my report for now. And Jim, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. If I can just piggyback. So we're going to ask Ms. Morrow, and we're going to have the tech team here, I think, at a future meeting to acknowledge them. However, if we have the tech team here, I think we're going to have Marianne Conway and Sean actually stay home as a gift to them that maybe we'll just have them stay home that night. So anyway, but no, wonderful event. So thank you for, and we always appreciate, the chamber does amazing work with our kids, and many of our students are often recipients of chamber scholarships. So we are very much appreciative of that. So thank you to the chamber. So a couple of things you mentioned, you kind of stole a little of the thunder. Just I was going to mention strategic planning, which I will, and just sort of echoing the fact that last night we had our first meeting. It was, I think, very well attended. It was representatives of really, our parents, I think, were pretty well represented. Our staff was represented. Of course, the Board of Education, many members were there. So I think it was very robust conversation, good start. The next meeting will come up on April 11th. And as I said, also mentioned a couple of times, there will also be a climate survey that will go out to the entire community. Still waiting on that from Rutgers. But we hope within the next, supposed to be in March. So within the next couple of weeks, hopefully that'll be happening. So we're going to have a lot of data to help drive our next strategic plan. So that's going to be great. Yesterday held our preschool lottery. It went off really without a hitch. And I want to just publicly thank Jenna Boker, who is the preschool secretary, and Debbie Anicelli, and also, Doug Covert for their work, because, every year that is the preschool lottery is a stressful experience, and a lot can go wrong. There's a lot of moving parts. And I can tell you that yesterday, as I mentioned, it went off without a hitch. So a lot of, and that doesn't happen by accident. So I congratulate them and appreciate them. And we're bringing in 90 students next year to third grade to join our 3-year-old to join our 4-year-olds. And, we really would love to be able to, we're getting closer to where we won't have to have this lottery anymore. But we're excited about our program, and we're very happy about that. We have another vaccine clinic happening this Thursday night. This one's at Wanamassa. So just as a reminder, this is really sort of the 3 weeks from the one we had at the high school. This may be, I'm not sure if that will do many more for this school year, that the attendance, the last one was pretty low compared to the ones earlier. And so we'll see how this attendance goes, and if it's not horribly well attended. I think there's certainly vaccines are pretty readily available, and people can get them. So we'll see how this goes, but we're happy to provide this to the community, and so, but just they've all been at the high school. Thursday night is at Wanamassa. So why was it Wanamassa? It was the only building that was available on Thursday night. So that's why. No conspiracy theories, please. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was this week, we're starting a series of assembly programs for our students. And there's a parent program coming up in a couple of weeks. I think and I apologize, last night I mentioned this because I thought the flyer had already gone out, but it went out today. So we're working with the kids organization. It's the Conscious Youth Development and Support, and great guys, Michael and Ronnie. They do great work. We had them here last year at the high school. So we have assembly programs. They were at Wanamassa today. They're going to be Wayside tomorrow, and it's really centered around mindfulness and helping kids just be more calm and how to learn how to better respond to when stressors come into their worlds, and it's a great program. And so kids all this month, various schools this week it's Wanamassa and Wayside. High school is next week, middle school, and then I think we finish up with Dow Avenue toward the end of the month. And then the parent program is the 21st, and it's called Conscious Parenting, basically similar kind of thing, helping parents kind of when things get a little stressed, how to kind of self-regulate, and how to practice some mindfulness to be able to put yourself as a parent in a better place, so that hopefully you can be that much of a better parent for your child. So good programs coming up. We're excited about them. And continuing a lot of the work we do in the SEL world. So that's pretty much what I've got for this evening.
Okay, great. Anybody have anything for Alex?
I have 3 quick questions, hopefully. I love kids, KYDS. I think they're an amazing organization.
Yep.
Local, Asbury Park. gentlemen. And I think it's fantastic that we're coming. I saw the press release yesterday on the school district website. I just was curious, how much does it cost and who's paying for it? Is it part of ESSER funds that we're using? Because this kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that
So-
that was part of what we talked about. The focus shifted a little bit when we talked about what we were using the ARP funds, the mental health portion of the ARP funds. That is where this is coming. We're still waiting on the invoice. I want to say it's around $16,000. That's
Okay.
what I'm pretty sure we're at, right about that. And
Okay,
that includes all of the assembly programs. And when we say that, they're doing multiple assemblies per school because
Yep.
we're getting all of the grade levels in.
Mhm.
From pre-K up. So I think they're doing 3 per building per elementary. And then they're here over the course of 4 days at the high school, so each grade level can come in. And then I think it's 2 days at the high school, multiple programs, and then, another 3 at the Avenue. So they're doing,
A lot.
probably when it's all said and done, 15, maybe more, 18 assemblies for kids, which is great. And then the parent program. So yes, we are using the mental health portion of the ARP, ESSER 3 or ARP funds that we received. And originally the thought was we were going to be looking at things more to restorative practice, and we talked about that at a previous meeting. But the focus shifted a little bit more to these assembly programs and the mindfulness approach for both kids and parents.
and will that parent one be, I know it's virtual, but
Yes.
will it be taped and like posted somewhere?
We have to,
Yeah,
yeah, we have to talk with them. Once again, a
Okay.
lot of times folks, because they're, when that kind of thing is out in the public,
Yeah, it might be
then
the
other groups grab it
Yeah.
and they don't have to hire.
proprietary or
Yeah,
whatever.
right,
Yeah.
so I know we can use them internally.
Okay.
So we could show them again, we could give them to PTAs and I think show them at
That's a
PTA
good idea.
meetings, things like that. I don't know that we can put them out in the public domain. My guess is probably not. But I'll check, we'll check with them.
Okay, so, and then 2 quick questions. Do you know a breakdown yet of last night's like parents versus teachers versus administrators? There seemed to be like 50 people there last night.
It was
but
over
I
60, yeah.
I couldn't tell. I don't know a lot of the teachers in the district.
It felt like to me there was about 35 parents.
That's what I thought at first, but then I kept seeing teachers stand up. So I was like, oh, I thought that was a teacher. Yeah, I thought it was more like
I was
20
I was
parents.
actually gonna look, but Kathy kind of swooped up the sign-in sheets before I had a chance, and
Yeah.
but she'll send that all to us. We'll get
Okay.
a full breakdown of everything.
Okay,
And that'll go up on the website.
it's not yet on our website, the dates for the 11th and the May one, so we'll be putting those up soon.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and then my last question is, I did not watch the preschool lottery. I haven't watched it since my kids were 3.
You missed a great show.
And I cried myself to sleep that day when I didn't get, no, I'm just kidding. So do we say kids' names, right? We say like group 1 or group white, group red or whatever. Has there been any like discussion about possibly giving numbers rather than saying names? Because I was please correct me if I'm wrong. I was under the impression that we say like, okay, group B, which is like the socioeconomically challenged.
We don't say which group is what. We don't say which
But-
group is which.
You can kind of, get a little bit of demographic background in some of the parents' names. So perhaps maybe a number might be a little bit more anonymous. I think that would just be something to think about.
Well, we don't want to assume certainly that based on a name designates someone's
Sure.
economic background, but something we could talk about for the future, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. John,
The only question I had was in reference to the strategic planning yesterday. At the end, the manner of collecting key themes in terms of strengths and weaknesses, it didn't seem very foolproof to me.
Hmm.
Is there a way that we could request that she reviews all of the sheets that were?
Kathy, remember, we've been through this process, and
Okay.
that's what Kathy does,
Okay.
I think she certainly she likes it when the community can pick the
Participates.
when participants can do that, but she goes through and
Okay.
she looks to see, well, was that really a common theme or was it not really a common theme? And then she goes through that, but she certainly she doesn't want to, over edit anything because that's what, she likes to look at what happens organically, but, the purpose too is to not allow 1 or 2 people say to have, if they come with a particular agenda, to have that dominate something, if it's really only something that 1 or 2 people have as an issue. Now, if that becomes something that the majority of the group thinks is, they may bring that to the table, and if the majority of the group says, yeah, that's true, then it does become a common theme, right? So yeah, Kathy Weinkauf has been doing this for many, many, many years and has led many of these. So she works through that and
Yeah, I think the other thing, John, is all those things are gonna be typed up and everybody's gonna see them. So there could be a line there that we think is really important, but didn't make it to that chapter level, because that was really a chapter level list. That the summary is really a chapter level
Yeah.
list. It wasn't like
And-
the detail. And
and
there were
there's
some details in there I
also-
think were very valuable.
I'm sorry.
know.
There's also probably some things that we just know about internally that we see that perhaps folks in the audience didn't necessarily know. So, just because it wasn't mentioned there last night doesn't mean that there couldn't be some other things brought in over time. Just based on where we see, where, we as an administration think, hey, we know that 3 years from now, this is something we're really going to need to look at. You know what I mean? So we bring those things in too. But we like to take a step back a little bit as an administration and allow, the community to kind of speak of what it wants to say.
Any other questions? One thing I forgot to mention is I did attend the Monmouth County Board President's meeting. Did I get that right, Alex?
Yes.
Okay. And now Alex kind of sent me a thing to attend, which I didn't even realize it was going on. And one of the things that there was a lot of good discussion about, one, how boards are meeting and stuff and how that's working. So I got some input around that. And then the other was about ESSER funds and how they should be deployed. And there was a lot of discussion about making sure the ESSER funds were deployed around things around capital expenditures that were helping us with our environments and things like that. And a number of districts have put themselves into problem areas by investing in things that were ongoing expenses, and they kind of were openly talking about that. So I want to just add that because that was some discussions that were kind of happening here. So I just wanted to add that. Okay, anybody else? All right, I think we will go to Tina.
I have nothing tonight because we're going to be talking about the budget and what, so.
So
Unless you want to do you want to do the audit now? Or do you want to go through the minutes, ask about questions, and then we could have the auditors? Whatever.
Well, let's go through this now, all right? Not your thing. We'll go through this process just to
Yeah,
make sure there's
okay.
questions and stuff. Okay. So we're gonna go to public comment. All motions are posted on the district website. At this point in the meeting, we will now conduct the first of two public comment sessions. The first session will be open for public comments on agenda items only. The second session will be at the end of the meeting and can be on any topic. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment on any agenda item? There's nobody in the audience right now. At least I don't think our auditors want to make a comment, right? Okay, not yet. Ms. Conway, does anybody on the line want to make a comment?
President Weinstein, there are no commenters.
Okay, great. Thank you. Why don't we move to approval minutes? Irene?
Got it. Mr. Weinstein. Move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Education bylaw 0168, recording of board meetings from our work meeting executive session minutes, March 1st, 2022. Are there any corrections, changes, concerns? None noted. General vote.
Do we need
All
a
in
second?
favor?
We need a second? We need a second.
Second. I'll second it.
Thanks.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, financial management. Natalie, can you do that remotely?
You're muted.
Can you-
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. We have 8 items this evening, 4 for approval and 4 for discussion. 8.1, move to approve the annual school district audit and corrective action plan for 2020 to 2021 school year, as per the below and attached. 8.2, the following revised resolution certifies that budget balances at the end of June 30th, 2021 were adequate to pay all remaining obligations of the 21-22 school year and that account groupings required by the state have adequate balances. The board is also certifying that the independent reports of the treasurer and the business office are in agreement per the resolution listed below. 8.3, the following revised motion is to transfer monies from one account in the budget to another and provide the adequate balances referred to in the first motion per the attached report. 8.4, move to amend the approval of the unit ventilator upgrades project at the TOIS awarded to SRJ Mechanical LLC, lowest cost of 4 bids at the cost of $1,836,000 in accordance with the attached bid. 8.5, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the interlocal services agreement with the Township of Ocean for the rental of school buses to the Township Recreation Department for use during the 2022 summer camp program in the amount of up to $4,500 based on the number of buses utilized in accordance with the attached agreement. 8.6, excuse me, Board of Administration will discuss the sale of surplus property no longer needed for public use through GovDeals online auctioning. Surplus property to be sold will include retired school buses, maintenance and grounds vehicles and equipment, and outdated technology equipment. The surplus property shall be sold in as-is condition without express or implied warranties. The board reserves the right to accept or reject any bid submitted. 8.7, Board of Ed and Administration will continue to discuss 2022-2023 budget items, specifically student enrollments as per the attached. And 8.8, Board of Ed and Administration will continue to discuss budget items, in this case personnel, per the attached. May I get a second on 8.1 through 8.4?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Truba.
So why don't we go through the audit first before we go for a vote this way? Because that's going to be a discussion topic that I think people are going to want to hear.
Okay,
So if you want to go to the,
Yeah.
Is it better if they sit?
Ms. Beal.
Would they rather sit? So I don't know.
No, we can.
But-
we can
No,
turn
they're
it.
right, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Just so
yeah.
if anybody, everybody will
weird?
hear them.
Yeah.
It's okay, usually we do say, but.
Oh, you can sit if you want. If you want to sit, you can sit.
The microphone here, you just put it aside there.
The one you can sit.
That's what Alex
Yeah.
is talking about.
That's what I mean.
You guys can share
Is
this.
that all right?
Yeah,
I mean, Seems
absolutely.
weird to have them share a podium, the tiny podium.
Yeah, Mary Ann, did you, Ms. Conway, can you bring up the screen? The attachment to the audit? Is that, do they know which one?
Do you want to start with the CAFR or do you want to start with the AMR?
You know what, I
Or
think
do you
for
just
the
want to
most
talk through
part,
it?
you were just gonna talk through
Okay.
it.
Oh, you're just gonna talk to
Yeah.
it, so nothing to show.
No, we don't need to show anything really.
Wow,
We'll
no
just
show
talk.
and tell? Okay.
Just
Yeah.
make sure-
I mean, you
You want to
can.
just make sure the microphone is
Yeah,
moved.
can you move a little
Yeah.
closer?
You realize everybody likes a show and tell.
I'm gonna
Uh,
get mine too.
okay.
Okay.
So we've completed the audit for the year ended June 30th of 2021. It seems like it's been a long audit. One of the reasons why it's extended to March 15th is when we have to file it, is because we wait for the state of New Jersey to give us the pension information as well as the health benefits for the retirees. And those actuarial reports are always done, we always get them late. We only got the OPEB, which is the health benefits, I think, at the end of January. So, and then we have to incorporate that. As you can see, there are very lengthy disclosures in the financial statement about the pension as well as the OPEB. So that has to be incorporated into our report. One thing new this year is there's a new accounting pronouncement called GASB 84. And that caused restatement of the prior year fund balance. There has been, so normally the student activity fund and the scholarship fund were in basically in a different, in their own separate funds in the audit report. And what this GASB required is now they're part of the special revenue fund, the Fund 20. So that had to be moved, and in doing so, we had to restate basically the special revenue fund balance. So if you see restatement in there, that's why. It's nothing that was wrong. It's just because of this new accounting standard. And the general fund, the unemployment fund that we carry, which is the employee contributions that go into the fund, and we pay as we go, as there's claims. So there's funds in that fund. That's now part of the general fund. So those three different funds, scholarship, unemployment, and student activity, they were all considered agency funds, not really the board's money. But now it's been, for some reason, it's part of our operations. So that's why you'll see restatement. There's a positive variance. If you look at our, of course, I always like to tell you, we have 3 different bases of accounting that we report in this audit report: budgetary basis, GAAP basis, which is in accordance with accounting principles, as well as a governmental basis. So the C1 schedule and the C2 schedules, those are really what you work with on your budget. And those fund balances there are the ones that are really important to the board. That really reflects, I think, around 72 million of expenditures. Based on that level of expenditures, we're allowed to retain 2% of general fund balance. For this year, they actually, because of COVID, allowed us to retain 4%. However, that would have reduced the amount of money that would have been returned to the taxpayers in the budget that you're working on now. So the superintendent and business administrator just elected to still retain the 2%. So the way that calculates, there'll be excess surplus that will be returned to the taxpayers in the new budget year of $3,839,705.
Laura, we didn't take all of it. We kept it almost flat year over year. So we're bringing
well,
back
that's
like
what I mean, right.
3.6, 3.65, which is what we did year over year. So we're giving that benefit back to the taxpayer so that we can keep the tax levy at that 2%.
Right. Last year, I think it was around
3,777. Yep.
That was, so if we had elected to keep the 4%, it would have been about $1.5 million less. So
What does that mean for layman's terms? Do
So-
people here,
so-
I'm thinking you're gonna give me a refund check, which you're not gonna be doing.
no, it's going towards the
Right.
next year's budget.
So
so
$3
if
million that was extra surplus is going to next year's budget.
Right.
People are not gonna get a check.
No, it's
Okay.
just if that wasn't there, their taxes would
Would
go
go up.
I would need more than 2% to be able to close that.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Taxes are gonna go up.
Right.
They always go up.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to,
So, and we're limited to how much, like I
Mhm.
said, we're limited to how much we can retain.
Yep.
Okay. We have, in the audit report, there's 3 different basically opinions that we give. One is our opinion on the financial statements as a whole, and that is the first opinion, and that is a clean opinion. Then there's 2 in the back based on our grant programs, our federal and state aid that we receive. And we have to show that we're in compliance with the federal and state regulations. And as far as we can see during our audit, the board was compliant. All the expenditures that were in line with what the grant budgets were. However, we do have, as far as the financial statements, we found a material weakness. And that material weakness is really due to the reason we determined that was it's internal control over financial reporting. So when we receive the financial statements, those board secretaries reports that you look at every month, we really couldn't rely on them. We basically got over a period of 4 to 5 months, several revisions to those statements. So we really felt that the financial statements may have had errors that were not detected prevented or corrected on a timely basis. They were all corrected by the time our audit was completed, but during our audit period, we were getting different revisions to those financial statements.
And what period?
Yeah, I
Can
don't know how
we-
you
can we raise our hand for a second? Hold on. Can you finish? I'd like you to finish all she has to say, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay? Thank you. Keep going with your report.
Okay, so that's the material weakness, and that basically then takes us into the management report where we have recommendations, and we have 7 recommendations. And once you hear the recommendations, I think you'll understand why we determined that there was a material weakness. Go ahead, Scott.
So the material weakness that Laura's referring to, basically there, we got several versions of several different reports, the board secretary report, some of the work papers didn't
Actually,
agree.
can you talk a little louder? I can't hear you.
So the board secretary report that we got, we got several different versions over the length of the audit. And we found different things as we were doing testing that the work papers that were prepared didn't match the board secretary report. There were different revisions happened, and then, we looked at the next one and something else changed by the time we got the next report. So that really leads us to, a material weakness that, as Laura mentioned, we couldn't rely on those to be accurate. So we had to do, throughout our testing, we had to be looking for, I guess, more errors, so that leads, and there's a different level, and based on the amount of work that we did and the revisions that we got, we felt that it rose to the level of a material weakness. And then also in the management report, there's some other issues that we came across and some corrections that would be helpful for you guys to know about. The first one is the budget for the revenues in the internal reports. It didn't agree to the board approved version in the budget. And really what that leads to is the variances that were coming out of the reports were not accurate. So what was really happening and what was on the report were different. So it's all part of the reporting process for everything to kind of be correct and agree to each other. The next one is, so on the board secretary report, there's summary pages of stuff basically collapsed into the summary pages. There were 2 accounts, I think, 2 accounts that were in the detail, but they didn't roll up into the total. So if you tested the detail, they were there. When you roll up to the total, they weren't there. And we found that throughout our testing, we were looking for something in particular and couldn't find that the total didn't tie, but in the detail, we found that it was there. So it was just, they were 2 new things that happened for this year. They were added to the board secretary report, but somewhere in systems, they just weren't coded correctly. The next comment is there were a few budget transfers that were made between funds, and those transfers have to be approved, one by the board, by you guys, and the second is if they rise to a certain percentage, they have to be approved by the county superintendent. So we found a few transfers that were not part of the board minutes. The approved transfers were made between funds.
They were basically as a result of the corrections to the board secretary's report. So all those corrections that were happening resulted in transfers, and those transfers were not submitted to you for approval.
And then also there's a fixed asset report that keeps track of all the assets that are owned by the district. A few of those, well, the first thing there, that wasn't reconciled to the board secretary report. So there were assets that were on the list that didn't tie to the board secretary report and vice versa. And then there were a few buses that were disposed of during the year that were still on the schedule. Now, they were fully depreciated, so there wasn't any book value there, but nonetheless, they were still there. Then there was the TPAF, the reimbursement report. There were some 3 or 4 revisions to that report from the internal records and the preparation of that. So there were a couple changes in that. So that's really something, that should have been caught in the
It was submitted to the state and then the state returned it
Correct.
because it had math errors and
Okay,
and then the last comment we have is on the food service program. The reports are supposed to be kept on an accrual basis, which basically means any receivables and any payables are supposed to be recorded as you go. And it was basically kept on a cash basis. So we got the reports, we're missing the AR and the AP. So we had to make some adjustments to put it on there for the purposes of putting it in the report. So that's really should be kept on the accrual basis. And, so we had some adjustments there from the audit.
thank you.
Yep.
So I'll open up for questions. The questions, though, are going to be really restricted to around process, and we're going to avoid any conversation around personnel in any way in this meeting. Okay, so if you have a question around process, feel free to ask. John, would you like to go first?
So it's my understanding that with material findings that means the issue is that there could potentially be a view of impropriety, but not that there is one, right? That's
not impropriety,
okay.
error.
So I think, and I'm just going to articulate this, I want you to correct me again like that, because that's a great way for me to understand. So I think what I'm understanding is that these are recording errors and these are administrative errors, but there does not seem to be any sort of missing funding or anything like that, correct?
No, and that's why you have a clean opinion.
Okay,
It's just that when we first looked at the financial statements, the internal controls to allow us to, or anyone to rely on these statements weren't there.
Can you move the speaker, the microphone a little closer to both of you? Thanks. So people can hear that. Online. Thanks.
and so the spirit of a material finding is to point out that administrative issue in the hopes of preventing a possibility of additional issues. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have a question? Grace Ann?
Hi, how are you? And thank you for that report. It was very detailed. I just have a couple of questions. So this goes from January 1st, 2021 to, no, okay, could you?
July 1 of 2020 to June 30th of 2021.
Okay, so that was my first question, what it covered, what years? And then there was one other question I had about the 2 accounts where you said there were summary pages of 2 accounts in detail. And the detail, did that tie out?
So what happened is, so there's, if you look at your board secretary's report, there's the summary of all the expenditure, revenue and expenditures. And then when you look in the back, there's the detail. And what happened is those 2 numbers didn't match. And it did give us, we utilized those reports. And it did give us a little bit of trouble because I think what happened is there were some new expenditure accounts because of some of the new programs. And systems has to be told to capture them in the detailed report. So it was in the summary totals, but not in the detail report. And then when we looked at the budget report, which is the detail of all the different line items, actually some of that didn't match the board secretary's report either. So initially we thought we had negative variances, but we didn't. It was just the way systems was set up to capture these accounts and put them together.
And at the very end, you were able to reconcile everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it took some doing.
Thank you.
Ms. Gilman?
Yes.
Amy, I'm waiting for Ms. Gilman.
Thank you, Laura, for such a detailed report. I went through the corrective plan that you outlined for us and expect that all of these clerical errors or other kinds of errors will be taken care of. Now, we're planning a full fixed audit for 22-23.
Pardon me? Oh, the fixed assets?
Fixed asset, I'm bringing in an outside firm, correct? Yes.
So
And that's normally something that's done every 5 years.
The corrective
Every 5
action,
years.
yeah, the corrective action plan comes from, I put that together and Laura agreed with what we put together.
okay, okay. I thought perhaps you
No.
were
No,
handling that.
no.
No.
No, I
We
think,
did, actually, it was done right after the last referendum projects
Right.
were done.
It's due. It's
So
definitely due.
it's due again
Yeah.
for a cleanup.
Okay. On the audit report, and I know it was done June 30th for 2021, but some roster items need to be corrected. So that will all be corrected before it's submitted. For example, our Board of Ed people are listed incorrectly. The years of their expired term, some of them are incorrect. Will that all be updated?
Yeah, I mean, what we have here was as of June 30th of
As of June 30th.
2021.
Have to do it at the end of the audit.
Right.
And that's the end
It's-
of the
And
audit.
normally,
Although
um,
it had Mr. Weinstein as president
Maybe that.
and me
maybe
as
the
vice
ti-
president.
Maybe the
So
titles.
there was a
were-
date, there was a date.
Yeah.
spoke.
I don't know.
I
what
did update the titles, but the terms were, normally our report would be due in December
Right.
before you have the turnover.
Change, yeah.
So, I mean, we can change that because it is a draft,
Right.
but
I thought you would change it before we vote on the final.
No, we need to vote today.
We need to vote today.
Yes.
yeah, because
The
it's
draft is
June
just
15th.
for quality
Oh, it's
control.
right.
In other words, the recommendations, the numbers, none of that'll change. We can change. I understand what you did, Laura. I agree. Because now if we're submitting this to the state, Jeff is the president, you are the vice president.
Right. but-
So, it's just,
But, you know.
I'm
Janice is on
comfortable with
there,
either, I'm
so-
comfortable with either way.
I think we normally, let me just see, who do we have?
Because it's normally due.
I
in
think it was
December.
page 14.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we had, I did,
Yeah, that's why.
change your titles, because I guess when I was looking at who the officers were, that's who they were. So.
Okay,
Thank you.
Miss Hayes.
Hi, good evening. I'm probably the most admittedly budget novice and numbers person who hates numbers the most because I'm not the biggest math person. Do you have dates of all these revisions? Were they like when you say they were submitted several times, I'm making this up. If it was 1 month, then were they corrected and then sent to you that month, or did you just get like a stack of files and then you would see it was?
Yeah, we got,
So
So
as,
you can-
as.
Like,
we
how
were
does that
doing-
work?
So the, as we were getting the information, we got the first reports and then we started testing certain areas and we found, things that didn't reconcile.
Mhm.
And so changes were made. And then, so I think the first one we got was August
August
3rd was the first one. Then the next version we got, we found a few things and the next version we got was in November at some point.
maybe October,
Um,
because we had 4 or 5.
Right, so end of October, early November, that we found, other things as we were doing our testing. Then we got another revised version. So as we were going through our testing, the issues we were finding were being corrected. Just as we were getting to the next section that we were looking at, we found other corrections. That's,
So it ranged from August 3rd, I think, for both for most of the reports. On the general fund, I think the last one we worked with was early December. For special revenue, it was December 22nd.
I'd like to interject something. So
20
from an operations perspective, like actual accounts payable, payroll, the physical work, I would call it the business train that keeps things working,
Mhm.
there was no findings at all. This was basically due to journal entries that should have been completed, reconciliations that should have been completed in a timely basis that weren't done. And the auditors were the ones that were saying, well, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. So it was a constant reiteration. So if you look, after we go through the audit, you will see on here that the board secretary report of 6/30/2021 is coming back up. The transfers are coming back up because these are now all corrected documents based on working through the audit.
Okay. Follow-up questions were, since you're finding some material weaknesses and examples where things, if I'm understanding correctly, the things were moved or recorded without the board or the county superintendent approving, does that mean we need to go back into other years or whatever?
No,
We're
no.
strictly only going to be concerned with this, correct?
We've
This
never
year?
se- We've been auditing for a while. We've
Mhm.
never had this book. So this is, as some of the board members who've been on the board for a long, a long time. And really, the fact of the transfers
Mhm.
were because after the year closed, there were transfers that were being made between special revenue fund and the general fund, tweaking where the expenditures were posted for the most part. That's where the transfers would happen. So, and those are things, none of them rose to where the level where the county superintendent would have had to approve them,
Mhm.
but you would have to.
But we did it.
Right.
Right.
Not on a timely basis.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for your presentation and for the time and for clarifying some things. And Ms. Truba, I know you're going to take some matters and processes to tighten this up. So thank you for doing that as well. Thank you for your time.
Where do we go
Okay.
from here, though? I'm sorry. And
Oh.
I had other questions, though.
Okay, we'll go for another question.
Thank you.
And then we're going to move on.
Because our agenda was changed yesterday, right? So what's in there right now, did that change from what we got as a board on Friday?
When you gave me the draft is when it went up. So when did you gave me the draft last week, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did have some minor corrections as far as.
Nothing super material.
Periods and things like
Okay.
that, just some,
More like, nothing on content.
nothing on numbers.
Right.
Okay. And my other question was going to be, could,
The MD&A did change.
In what way?
Some of the numbers in the MD&A were not correct. I corrected them. on
You corrected
Saturday.
them?
could some of these errors have been prevented if we had certain software, for example?
No, it wasn't a software issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Did we vote on this?
We have to vote on 8-1 to 8-4, but are there any other questions
think-
on?
I think we're good. On any other topics?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
On
great.
any of the things that we have to go for vote, are there any questions? So let me go
Wait.
through.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so 8-1 was just what Laura and her team presented.
Yeah.
Okay. 8-2 is the revised monthly financial reports based on the audit for 6/30/2021. 8-3 is the transfer reports that Laura was just talking about, making sure that that ties to what we've done in the audit. Okay, and then what 8-4 is, it is the same resolution from last week, but I was advised to include the dollar value because on the last, this was the one that we decided to take the vote on last week.
Mhm.
I didn't put the dollar value of what the bid was for on the original resolution, so I included that so the board realizes we had a budget of about $2 million and it came in at 1.836. Okay, so it came in under budget. So those would be the 4 things that we would need to take a vote on tonight.
Great. I think you already seconded, right?
Yeah, I have the
Okay.
second was
So on
Ms.
second,
Field.
right? Did you have a question,
I
Jason?
do. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I wasn't here last week. I was at the DECA conference, but I have one question about the HVAC. Could you just briefly give me understanding of the difference of what in the intermediate school was done through the referendum versus what we're doing now? That's it.
So the referendum was primarily due or was used for air conditioning.
Okay.
And because the intermediate school had air conditioning in most of the areas, other than the big handling areas. So like the science lab was air conditioned. I think some of the common areas became air conditioned, but the rest of the intermediate school was already had air conditioning. So the referendum was used toward the other schools predominantly.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's only used for the science and No.
Major areas, exactly. Like big open spaces. So nothing in the classroom wings, which is what this project does. So currently, what we are replacing is the units that we put in back in 1975, when the building was basically built. So we're replacing this is the HVAC project. And the reason we're doing this is because we cannot do this in the winter when kids are in session. The curtain wall is the next part of this project. That can be done because that's the outside facade of the building. That could be done when school's in session, but the HVAC cannot. And the reason we pushed it for a vote last week was because I have to order all of the materials that we need, and they're telling me that if I didn't do it sooner rather than later, I might not get the products in by August. So from a referendum perspective, very little was done in TOIS because most of it was air conditioned already.
was it supposed to be done back then?
No,
Or no, it was
no.
never scheduled
No,
for that.
correct. The referendum was a higher amount from what I understood and then got scaled back.
Yeah, the other schools didn't have the air conditioning, and that was the primary push, as Tina said. But I think once upon, with the pandemic arriving, there was a lot of discussion about the types of filters that are
Right.
in the unit ventilators. And because the units at the middle school are older, now 45 years old compared to the other unit ventilators in the schools, which are, within, well, many cases, since the referendum, 6 or 7 years. The type of filter, the grade of filter, those units can't handle a higher grade of filter like the newer units can.
The MERV
So,
13s they are.
do they, right, I mean, if you remember conversations about MERV 13s and MERV 8s and all that. So this will enable us to update those systems to where they will be able to handle a higher grade of filter.
Which will clear the
Right,
air
which will
better.
provide for
That's why,
better-
yeah,
Better,
which is
air
exactly
filtration.
what you're supposed to use these funds for, the ARP funds for.
Gotcha.
Ms. Hayes,
I was trying to look what the difference was, what the differences were in the previous contract and then the one that is posted now in the $1.8 million bid.
There's none.
So the actual document, I didn't see anything different. We had to put in the 1.836 in
And
that
that was what the
sentence.
auditors are telling me for visibility to the board
Okay.
and to make sure that they understand, put the dollar value.
Okay, I just don't see in the actual document, I only see like 1.3 million. I don't see
1.3
where,
million, and then you look at the alternative for the $530-something thousand, that's for the actual
Where did I miss that?
controls in the document.
Page 2.
It's page 2.
It's handwritten, page 2, under 1.0.
So that's all the controls that
Totally missed
control
that.
the
Okay.
HVAC,
okay.
okay?
Ms. Gilman.
Mr.
Thank you.
Struba, so 8.2 and 8.3, we're just
Thank you.
voting on revisions back to June. But each month that we get our financial report and the transfers, part of the corrective action was districts should ensure revenues and appropriations are entered accurately into accounting software. Going forward, are we going to kind of like self-monitor month by month just to make sure we're not in this predicament where we're going back to vote on corrective action for June?
So basically, I mean, I think the auditors did the job that they needed to do.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I think this was just timing. People didn't realize the cadence of what the audit was. And they waited too long to start the reconciliation process. If they would have done that as we were going through the year,
Right.
I think it would have surfaced sooner. So the one thing I did ask Laura is I'm having her come in, taking a look at a projection for how we're ending this year. And some of the things that needed to be corrected in this audit, I'm still seeing happen. So we have to get a
That's
handle
really
around all of this. So, she's been working with us, and I'm very appreciative of that. And then each month we need to look at this. I also have the county superintendent, not superintendent, the county BA, who was a BA for 26 years, taking a look at what we're also doing with the board secretary report. So when I came up with the corrective action plan, it was sitting down with the accounting department and really trying to put a cadence in place on a monthly reconciliation process around all of the journal entries that need to be done. Like I said, operationally, accounts payable is working perfectly, payroll is working perfectly. We are procuring the way we should be procuring. They found nothing like with RFPs. We're not booking journal entries and reconciling. Our internal controls are not where they need to be right now. So we need to work on that.
Thank you. I think that's very wise to have her help us going forward. So we feel confident as a board when we're
Absolutely.
voting for those.
Well, I want to
monthly
feel confident as a business
financial
administrator.
transfers.
You want to be
Sure.
able to rely on the people that are working within the district, that we're all doing the right thing and we're partnering together to make this the financials here are very sound. You have a
Yes.
good cash position. The cash position gets reconciled every month. That was done monthly. What was not happening is as all of these new accounts were coming out for ESSER funds and CARES Act, and, we were putting it into our financial operational system, but we weren't ensuring that the reporting was capturing what we were booking. So it really is just the journal entry process that we need to take a look at and ensure that we're booking those accounting controls appropriately.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay,
So why don't we vote on?
are we okay? No more questions? We could vote?
No more questions.
Okay, terrific. Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman.
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Is this strictly 8.1?
8.1 to 8.4. So you had last week, you did not vote for.
Yeah,
8.4.
8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, I vote yes.
Okay.
8.4, again, I don't think we should be
You're gonna
using that
abstain
money,
or
so
say no?
I'm gonna say no, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern.
Yes.
Ms. Palamis.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico.
8.1, 8.2, 8.3, yes, 8.4, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Ms. Tortorella.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Mr. Weinstein.
Yes to all.
Vote carries.
Okay, so now we have some discussion topics, right?
Yes. So these discussion topics, I'm going to keep them, we'll put these at the regular meeting for vote, but this is just a discussion topic. So the interlocal agreement is something that we do every year with the township. We allow them to rent some of our buses for the recreation department for some sport events for summer camps. Gov Deals, this is how we dispose of any of our buses that have aged out or maintenance equipment that is very old and we need to replace. So we have to put them on as utilizing them to do these auctions for us. And then we want to go into 8.7 and 8. Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
So Jim's going to do the enrollment
Right.
for the budget discussion and the personnel.
Right, so we wanted to talk, obviously about personnel and related to personnel, of course, is enrollment. We go over that. So the long awaited and anticipated enrollment numbers and particularly special ed.
Question. Hey
Yeah.
Natalie, did you have a question that you wanted to ask before, or is it?
I had a question on the buses.
Yeah,
Okay.
Do you want me to ask now or wait?
On the what?
the buses.
The
The
buses?
buses.
I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just curious if, two things. Do you feel like renting them out has an impact on the wear and tear? And two, what happens if, God forbid, a bus is in an accident? Whose insurance is that, ours or the town?
It would be the towns. So, we would go through ours and then they would reimburse us for any of the out of pocket. So the town would be liable for the payment. In terms of wear and tear, I mean, we drive our buses during the school year, the summer as well, because we have ESY. We do have other schools, we go out of district. So, this was something that we've always done as part of the shared service with the township. So, they more than cover the cost of the fuel and utilization of the bus.
Okay, thank you.
John?
We're doing questions for 8.6 and 8.7 right now, or sorry, 8.5 and 8.6 right now.
Sure. Yeah.
Did we, Mrs. Truba, did we find out if we are required to use Gov Deals to auction that equipment off?
Well, if you're auctioning, yes, you have to use Gov Deals. It's
So-
the state.
Are we required by the state to, for disposal of this equipment, to auction it?
Yes,
We are.
Yeah.
Okay,
and Gov Deals is predominantly what the state utilizes the website. Now, if I can't sell it, I could scrap it.
okay, so this is going up for auction for sale?
Yes,
Okay,
for sale to either like a private busing company that doesn't have like a 15-year limitation on the use of the bus, or even an individual. And we were getting anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 on the sale that we did for the 5 buses that went out for the past 2 years.
if it goes out for scrap, do you have to auction it?
No, I don't
Okay.
have to auction
Okay.
it, no. But I try to auction first,
If it, yeah, well, we cross that bridge when we come to it.
okay?
Thank you.
My question is very simple. The wear and tear on the buses, are we talking extensive mileage? Or are we talking?
No, just in town,
Just in
just in
town.
town, yep.
That was it. Thank you.
You're
great.
talking about the township for the summer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
just
I was
in town,
thinking,
yes,
like, long
just in town.
trips to Philly or,
No, no,
just
no,
in
no.
town as well.
Okay, Jim, you can talk about 8.7.
Okay, so, we posted a number of enrollment, figures, and Mary Ann, if you want to post some of these as we go. So one of the things that we posted was the ASSA report, which is taken every year on October 15th. This is what we officially sort of report to the state. I think what that shows is the trend over time. It shows, grade level, grade level numbers. You can see, classes of well over 300 have dipped to, for the most part, classes of, 230, 240 by the time we get to senior year. And even lower in some cases. You see the enrollment trends of special education, you see the enrollment trends of free and reduced lunch, you see the enrollment trends of economically disadvantaged over about the last 15, 16 years. So that's what the ASSA report will show. And as you can see, and I mentioned this last night, we've lost about 1,200 students in the last 15, 16 years. So we've been steadily about, somewhere between 75 and 100 students per year. And that's, our demographic studies show just the shift in the populations over time. And that's a big part of it. And speaking of the demographics, we expect to get some of the demographic information within the next couple of weeks that, from the official reports that we can.
That'll be the future enrollment,
Correct.
the projections,
Right, did
yeah.
everybody hear that? That we're gonna get those reports? in the next couple
Hopefully,
weeks?
hopefully,
Did you
we
want
may
to-
even have a little bit of it next week.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the SSA report. Another one that we listed there was just the total enrollment, very simply, that just kind of mirrors the SSA, just really listing total enrollment. The free reduced lunch graph showing, just over the years, and we see in the last couple of years, the drop because food has been free. Pretty much everybody has had access to free lunch. So there hasn't been a need to fill out the applications. So even though we've tried many times to do that, so that's why those numbers have dropped. We certainly don't believe that the actuals are any lower than they were, but technically they're lower because we didn't get as many applications. And then you just see another graph that speaks to based on the SSA report, the special ed enrollment versus the, and not versus, but along with the ESL or ELL enrollment. You see, for the most part, the last so many years, other than sort of a little bit of a jump in 2018, the special ed numbers have been relatively flat for the last 5 years or so, coming down a little bit. I think in line with the overall enrollment coming down, but the overall enrollment is dropping at a slower rate than the special ed is dropping. So obviously the percentage of special ed goes higher. We did see a fairly good jump in our ESL population this year. We're not sure if that's a 1 year. I mean, we were in the 190s a couple of years ago. We had a little bit of a decrease, and now back up a little bit. So you'll have to see what the next couple of years bring to show us to see if that's a trend or a 1 year anomaly or something to that effect. I'll go through the whole thing, Alex.
Yeah,
or-
I recognize.
Got it.
Yeah,
So-
she-
And then the last is just focusing mostly on special ed, and this is a little bit more detailed, showing not just the students with IEPs, but then in addition to that, the students who have speech-only IEPs. So that's in addition to, a general overall IEP that, and then it also shows those students who are non-public, meaning they do not attend our schools, and they may attend any of the private schools for which we are responsible, and funding does need to get shifted to those students through IDEA. And then it just shows the overall population. Now, this overall population is going to be different from what's on the ASSA report, because you see it includes things like Acelero population, the preschool evals, our out-of-district students, things like that. And that's why that is different from the ASSA report. So happy to answer any questions regarding enrollment or.
Alex, you go first.
Sure. Some of the numbers just don't, and I know what you just said about the OT population with the asterisks. I get that 3,300 is different from, the 3,100 or so that's on another graph. So that I understand why. But there are 3 different numbers for special ed population taken on 1015 and 3 different charts, and they're all different. 641, 642, and 629. So I'm just wondering why there's a difference in
So the.
taken on the same
On
day.
October 15th, based on, in the 642, the ASSA report will not, anybody who's in our pipeline, so before students, first of all, ASSA doesn't include preschool, and any students who are awaiting evaluation. So say 2-year-olds even, who are awaiting evaluation potentially to get into our 3-year-old special education preschool programs.
Mhm.
They will be in our system, but they're not going to be in the ASSA report. So the one sheet here, the one that's a special ed enrollment with the last 4 years, that reflects what's in our system. So those are those PS about preschool evals and things that is not included in the ASSA report, that would be included here.
Why would we include 2-year-olds in our special ed population for
Because
2022?
Because if they're in need of evaluation
Mhm.
for special education purposes, we are responsible for those evaluations. And so they then become entered into our sort of basically our power school, our system, our NJ Smart system with the state, but they're not official on ASSA yet until they become 3-year-olds and then enter into the program.
Okay, Grace Ann.
So I just don't remember if I've ever seen this, but do we have a chart on how many IEP evaluations were requested? And then number of students where the IEPs were denied or declined by age, demos over the years?
I mean, we did a report on that maybe a year and change ago, but I don't have that now. That was not requested as of this point.
Because I just see a decline in it. So I was just wondering
A decline in,
in the IEP numbers, right? Am I looking at
yeah,
that right?
well, I think, well, like I said, last couple of years, they've been a kind of flat, but yeah, I mean, as our
And will that be
population
done
goes
again?
down, obviously, that's gonna follow. So that, I think the decline in the population, I think the decline in special ed population mirrors the decline in the overall population.
Mhm. Are we gonna be seeing that again? A report on that?
That was a request of the board, I want to say November of 2020.
Is that something that might be part of the strategic planning process, or is that?
No, it's a yearly thing. I mean, I can tell you just anecdotally, I don't believe that we're seeing significant decreases in those areas in any way. Just based on.
John,
Can you explain to me what the tiers are on the left-hand side of this chart of the
the ASSA?
ASSA report and potentially the DOC tiers?
It depends on what schools they may be going to or what, different classifications, things like that.
They
So,
used to do that in the past. Currently, they don't do that. So if you look, that was only really for 06 and 07. And then they started to classify it differently by grade. You see? John? So.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
the
now.
state doesn't look at it that way anymore. So initially, these are state, what.
Oh, the
AS
the vocational
right,
tiers.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Oh,
Yeah,
vocational
so
tiers,
they
yes.
don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I thought you were talking
So
about special ed.
what
my
the
fault.
ASSA is this is how we get our state
State
aid.
aid.
Okay, the reason pre-K is not on here is because we have a separate grant that comes out for pre-K. That's why all the pre-K students are not part of this. It goes from kindergarten down. So that's why you're gonna see a difference in the special ed versus the chart that we're showing that has operationally what our CST and our special services group is looking at, because that includes all the pre-K population. And like Jim said, the evaluations of the 2-year-olds, because that's what we are looking at. And that's our student base that our team is supporting.
So this shows us private schools for special ed students, meaning the ones that are sent there. Do we see that same for non-special ed students? Do we still see that?
Private,
Yeah, like that are
most
in
of our,
district.
we don't really have that,
Typically
right?
don't
We don't send that.
do that. I mean, it's possible, but not typical.
Okay, but we have that data.
Oh, yeah,
We always have that. Okay.
but that's not something that.
That
is necessarily
ASSA
part of
cares
this.
Anything that is out of district, we have a tuition contract for that the
Right.
board approves every
Board
time the
approves.
student
Right.
goes out.
Okay.
But
thank
you know, anytime a non-special ed student would be sent out in that environment, that would be primarily
Special, right?
because of disciplinary
Right.
reasons or something like
Okay.
that. So it's not very typical.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, Alex?
In looking in my notes from previous emails back in June of 2021, we did ask Ms. Zona to break down like how many kids were requested IEPs, how many got IEPs, how many got 504s, what's the up and down. So I realize you say you don't have that now, but is that something?
Yeah, and if that's something the board would like, we can certainly get that. in. I
If-
mean,
if we got that
best we can.
presentation.
Let me ask, let's show of hands who would like to see that information.
What are we asking to
He's trying,
see?
he's trying to get a breakdown of the people that went through their IEP process.
Like,
and
How many requests for
Yeah,
IEPs, how
must
many
be-
grants for
how many were
IEPs,
granted for
how many
IEPs,
grants for 504s,
Right.
the numbers.
right. Yeah,
Can I make a suggestion?
sure, yeah, make a suggestion.
I would just say, if we're gonna do that, it would probably be best to wait till the end of this, toward the latter, a little bit more into the school year, so we have a more, typically we ask for those things to be done by, or those referrals to come in by around April 1st, if at all possible. Typically, when you're asking, when people have been working with a student all year long, you should probably have a good idea by April 1st
Mhm.
that a student may be in need of evaluation. So, even though we can't really make a hard deadline like that, because if a referral comes in June, a referral comes in June. But, but really, if you've been working with a student, as I said, for a long period of time, you should really know by around the end of this month if a referral is necessary. So I would say, to get a more accurate depiction of the year, I'd wait till closer to the end of the school year.
Is this, I mean, let me just, before I ask people if they want, is this something that you'd like to provide us with?
No, it's up to you. It's a board.
Okay,
If you'd like
so
to
let
see
me,
it,
so I'll leave it up to the board. Would you, can I get a show of hands who would like to see the information?
At the end of the school. year.
At the, more towards the end of the.
Yeah, like by May, June.
Yeah. We got
Last
one,
year it was June.
what, 1, 2, 3, was your hand up?
Yeah.
No? Okay, you're not up.
Sure.
Who's up?
I'm sorry, I'll keep it up.
Natalie, is your hand up or not?
No, it's not.
Okay, so I don't think it's necessary for us to do.
But if parents want to request that, I guess, never mind. I guess they can if they want. Okay, another question.
Okay, let's move on to,
Wait,
All right. So,
no,
so other questions regarding enrollment?
yes, hold on. Computer. Like 6 places for my questions. Or do you want me to come back?
I think we're gonna move on.
Well, it may come up as we
Yeah,
talk
it's okay,
about
it's okay.
personnel,
Yeah.
something could come
Yeah.
up.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll move to 8.8, and we wanted to go over, similar to how we looked at capital requests, what were the asks? And what kind of what's kind of in, and what's not really in at this point, what's totally out, what's sort of floating in limbo. And then we also wanted to talk a little bit about some positions that we believe that we will, either not be filling, like retirements, that we won't be filling those positions.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Marion, can you put that up for everybody to see?
We're to 8:08.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, so, so these were, pretty much the personnel asks, is what you see in the top, and it's broken out a little bit because we do have pre-K asks as well, but that's obviously driven by the pre-K enrollment. And then we have another, not sort of an ask, if you recall, in our ARP funds, there was funding that allowed for coaching, and we had put in for an ELL coach. So that's something that's coming through the ARP funds, not part of the general operating budget. So the only part of these asks that would fall under the general operating budget would be that first group of asks up at the top that says under school position, what have you. Pre-K budget separate and ARP funds separate from the general operating budget. So you can see that, just going through this, there was an ask initially for a full-time special ed Wilson teacher, Wilson reading teacher at TOIS. We took that ask out, and the belief basically is that we can do that with a part-time person. We don't need the full-time teacher. We could do it with a part-time teacher. Same thing with a math resource teacher for special ed at the intermediate school. So the original ask for full-time, we believe that we could do part-time there. The ICR pre-K teachers, they are, because our pre-K are integrated, there are 5 special education students in each pre-K. So there needs to be special education services provided to those students. And so we are needing additional pre-K teachers. Now you may ask, why is that not in the pre-K budget? Because the pre-K budget does only funds general education students. So any additions for pre-K that serve as special education students have to come from the general operating budget.
It's pretty crazy.
Okay, so that is that. An ask for a preschool disabled teacher. Now that's our full day preschool, or excuse me, full day special ed only preschool. All right, so that we're not exactly sure. That would either be at Dow Avenue or Wayside. We're not sure what school yet. An LLD teacher in 2nd grade, also depending on the school, but also at the elementary level. But that's also, so those are primarily the ones. And then you see down below a district-wide position, which was for a full-time ELL bilingual instructional assistant. That I think we would be slated more to the high school, but to be determined. So those are the ones. A couple of the only other 2 in that group is that there was an ask for a district level supervisor to oversee the Spartan schools. At this point, that's a 2. That's something that we really do value, but right now, based on the current budgetary situation, we kind of have it. It's not in 3 range at land. It's not in absolute necessity land, which is where the 1s are, but it's something that we do value and do like. And if it's possible, we'd like to get in, but as of right now, it's in the 2s. And then some of the 3s, special ed math position at the high school. We were able to do some moving around to where that position was no longer needed. There was an ask for an interventionist at Wayside, an ask for an instructional coach at OTIS, another request for a social worker. There was a request to move a part-time person and ICR teacher at Dow Avenue to full-time, but we were able to determine that we didn't need to do that. And then there was a request to make the current part-time art teacher at the Dow Avenue School to full-time, which for now, we've decided not to do. So I'm sorry, Denise, just one thing. So, where we really are with personnel is just absolute needs at this point. Nobody would say that these things aren't great once, but we're in a position where we have to stick with needs.
Yeah, let's go through your whole presentation.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up.
So if we go down to the 2nd page, you get a sense. So this is where, and Alex, you kind of brought this up last week, and this is, kind of where we are with some of the positions. So off the top, we do anticipate that the number of sections at OTES is going to have to be condensed. We've really kind of held on to to the much smaller class sizes there for a number of years, and we've done that purposefully. And I do think we are starting to see some better results there, but I think unfortunately, we're just no longer at a place where we can have the luxury of average class sizes of 14 and 15. So we do anticipate basically eliminating 3 sections from Dow Avenue in those grade levels where the class sizes, overall grade sizes are under 60. So even if we went to 3 sections, those class sizes would still be 20 or lower, which is still very good in the whole scheme of things, and much more in line with the rest of the district. So that's one thing to look at. Now, one of those positions, we have a retirement at Dow Avenue this year. So one of those positions would come from just the fact that we wouldn't replace that position. There's another retirement at Wanamassa. So there's the possibility, and probably what we would look to do is take another person from Dow Avenue and move them potentially to Wanamassa to cover either that or a position. Mr. Milano may decide to fill the kindergarten internally, and then that of course would open up something else in that school. And then there's a few other positions in the special ed realm that you see are needs that, there's going to be other areas where we believe those three positions can come from, meaning we do not anticipate while we may be cutting the number of positions from Dow Avenue, we don't anticipate cutting people as a result of those loss of positions. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. The other things that we're looking at is currently, and we have in our kindergarten programs, we have aides in those programs. That is, I can tell you something that is very atypical for public school systems at this point. It was added back when kindergarten was made full-time to help in that transition. That was probably a dozen years ago, and we've kept that going, and it's certainly, not a bad thing at all. But with the advent of now full-day preschool for a large percentage of our kids, those kids are by the time they get to kindergarten, they'll have 2 full years of full-day schooling, So the shift of our aides are down to pre-K in a way. And then when Tina and I actually met with the county superintendent at our mid-year review, they questioned this and said, what is this item? Because this is not something we typically see. And we explained it. And they said that this is definitely something that is atypical of kindergartens anymore. I think it certainly made sense when we transitioned. And it just became something we did. Unfortunately, once again, while it's not a bad thing, we're looking at necessities as compared to, things that are good to have, you could have aides in everything, What about first grade? What about second grade? What about third grade? I think everybody would argue that's a good idea, right? But the reality is that, it's just hard to afford that at this point. So there's 5 positions there that would be reduced, five kindergarten aide positions. But once again, we're going to be needing 3 preschool aides. There's going to be, we have a retirement from an aide, in this agenda, so we're hopeful, we're extremely hopeful that once again, while positions going away there, people are not necessarily going away there, right? So that's important. The social studies teacher position at TOIS, we've talked about in the past. That was a retirement that we did fill for the second half of the year, but we anticipate not needing that position next year. The 5th grade teacher, we had a retirement there. And because of class sizes, we do also believe that we will not have to replace that position. The French teacher is a retirement, and we've talked a lot about French, and French will be moving from the middle school up to the high school to 1 teacher. And we've talked about that, right? So those are that. And then the BCBA is actually a position that we budgeted for this year that we never filled. We were never able to fill it. We're still trying to look to fill it. We've basically said we've kind of gotten through the entire year without it. And, it's a pretty large budget item. And so we basically would
We
look
still
to.
have our BCBA, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, this is the position that this year we added to the budget this year, but we could never fill it.
Right.
We could never find a position to fill it, a person to fill it. So we're basically saying, why keep it there? And we would, do without it next year because of that situation. So, that, and why we didn't put individual numbers in there is because, these are people's salaries and things. And even though that's kind of public, we felt we didn't necessarily want to do that. But you can see what it all adds up to is that those positions would garner us about $715,000 in savings. Does that include that's just salary, right? And that's only salary. That doesn't include any savings on the health benefits. So that definitely is helping us, and still trying to get down to that number we're looking for within the budget. Yeah, and I also want to say that I can't promise that this is where it ends.
Yep.
We still have about 2.5 million, just so everybody knows, even with personnel, we're about 2.5 million over where we need to be at the 2%. So, as I mentioned before, we're very mindful to do these things in a way that is not detrimental to people. We try very hard, but we've had great success at that. But I can't make overall promises.
Thanks for that context.
Yeah.
Denise, did you have a
Just a
question?
quick question, Jim, the art teachers, have they always been, are they part-time at all the elementary schools?
No, well, the other art teachers, well, at least that Wanamasa is shared with the middle school.
Okay.
So they go between. No, the art teacher at OTES has been part-time, the 80%, does get benefits already. So it's not a large amount of money to make them full-time, but the problem is we have so many $10,000 and $15,000 and $8,000. And if we said, oh, it's only this amount of money for something that isn't an absolute necessity, that all adds up. I mean, all those little $10,000 and $15,000 things add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Natalie,
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Jim, do you want me to ask all three of them at once or one at a time?
sure.
Okay. So for
try to remember what they are.
kind of piggybacking off of Denise, I know we just saw the enrollment numbers, but it seems like all of the district growth is very specific to pre-K and special ed areas. There's no electives where there's growth. There's no regular ed growth. So I would just like to know more about that. I'll leave it there. Second question is, could the LCSW replace the BCBA? If we can't find a BCBA, would an LCSW fill some of, I know very well that it's a very different position, but could that position for a lower amount of money help meet some of the need? And then the third question is, can you talk about this district supervisor position? Like, who's there now? Why do you think we need that position going forward, and so forth?
Okay, I apologize, but you may have to re-ask the first one because I'm not sure I understood it.
Okay,
Forgive
so
me.
I guess it's disappointing to me to see that we're not making room for the art teacher in the budget because there's no growth there's no position growth for any regular ed or elective ed, specials in the entire district. I understand that we have an increased enrollment in special ed, so of course I would expect to see additional positions there, but the only position on this list, not somehow related to pre-K or special ed, is the art teacher, and we're cutting it. So I just wanted to know more.
No,
about
we're not cutting the art teacher in any way.
I don't mean.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you.
No, cutting it from the list.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand, that position. I mean, like I said, unfortunately, our priorities right now are just on those things that are absolute needs. Could adding that person be able to help us, provide some other opportunities in the arts for kids? Sure. I mean, that would be great. I mean, nobody's saying that wouldn't be. It's just, where we are budget wise right now, it's just, it's hard to be able to, look at any personnel with declining enrollments in many areas and add something that wouldn't be an absolute need. So I get it. We completely understand what you're saying. But I think that's the best answer I can give at this point. I think, speaking of the social worker, I think we're in a place where, neither one of those positions, adding those, I mean, once again, not that we couldn't use those positions, we certainly could. But once again, it comes down to, absolute necessities. And then, I'm sorry, please repeat your third question.
The supervisor.
Yes.
did you talk about-
Well, there's two on there that are asked. One would be the preschool, which is, becoming certainly it's becoming quite a responsibility. So that's one, but that is one that we would only really consider if it could be funded through the preschool grant. If it couldn't be funded through the preschool grant, then that's something that we don't believe at this point we would be able to fund through the general operating budget. And then the Spartan schools, again, are becoming more specialized and getting more and more students and the amount of work. And then, we also have a goal. We had a goal when we started them too, of a secondary goal, but a goal nonetheless, of trying to entice students from other districts, other K-8 smaller districts, perhaps come here on tuition basis. And, we've really struggled with that a little bit because we haven't had, I think, some of the personnel and COVID kind of dug into that a little bit too, but, we haven't really had the personnel to devote that time. And I think the hope is that if we could, go in that direction and have somebody who could really devote their time specifically to that in many ways that could pay for itself and through tuition and more. Right. So that was sort of the idea. But, when you're in a position where you're cutting potentially 13 positions, adding supervisory positions is a very difficult thing to do. And we understand that.
Okay.
Who does that now? Sorry, follow up to that.
It's a variety of people, because we have a coordinator, we have a district coordinator of the program, which is a stipended position. An existing administrator sort of oversees the Spartan schools. So, we have some folks that do it now, but they also have other responsibilities that make it difficult to focus purely on those areas.
Sure, thank you.
Before you, I'm gonna just ask a quick question. On that, is it feasible to actually bring in many kids from outside? If you were to give a perspective on that, are you thinking it's like, when you get 10 kids, or is it like, what are you thinking?
When I was at Red Bank Regional, when we did it, we brought in $2 to $3 million a year in tuition for these types
So you
of
think that-
programs.
so you
I'm
think
not
that-
saying that that's
Yeah, but we're
tomorrow.
not.
I'm just saying that there are many districts, and we've discussed this. There are many districts south of us, little K-8s that drive past us going north to schools and are paying tuition to go to those schools. And we could certainly, I believe we can tap into those environments without question.
Okay, thanks.
And we've made those attempts. And then, like I said, COVID
COVID,
and
yeah.
some of those things kind of got in the way, but we think we'd like that to be a major push. And we certainly have room as our population declines, we certainly have room to bring in additional students.
Okay, great. Okay. Amy?
I have two questions. So I have to, unfortunately, in budget time, erase my brain of Ken's terminology, but just wondering, when we're looking at the 433 plus the 60, so let's call it 500,000, right? And then we're looking at the 715. So the breakage, what we're thinking is about 115,000, right? I just want to make sure that this, if we're talking breakage, if this was the final thing, personnel breakage would be 115.
Go back to what,
No, Amy, it would be like
It's not that much.
two numbers or seven.
yeah, it's almost kind of a wash.
You've got the 257.
It's
Because
close
I was
to,
looking at the 433 plus the.
You
She's
need the
looking at the
257.
operational.
You got the
She's looking at the operational.
Okay, all right. So forget that question. My second.
Can you
question-
explain what breakage is?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. to
breakage,
interrupt you.
sorry. See, this is a Ken term, I'm sorry.
No.
Breakage is normally
Ken
that,
didn't-
if we have 10 staff members that are retiring or whatever, and that totals 715,000, and we didn't backfill those positions, then our breakage is 715,000, or sometimes
It's
we
your
have.
saving.
yeah, it's the
Saving.
savings between, like if
Breakage
somebody
saving.
retires that made 100 grand and
Breakage
you
is
hire
the
somebody
time
that makes
the
70
schools
grand, the
use.
breakage is
Sorry.
30
So,
grand.
so if you make 100 grand and you retire tomorrow and we hire someone for 60 grand, then our breakage is 40,
Got it.
so I just am used to the breakage term, so I apologize. All right, that was my first question. My second question was on the Spartan schools. maybe just so we can think about this position as we're going through budget, is it possible, and there does not have to be a presentation, is it possible to
You sure?
just,
'Cause we could do a
if the board wants, to just have the numbers of how many, what the enrollment of the Spartan schools has been over, I mean, it's been
Well,
5 years, you know, so the
yeah.
life just of the.
It's about a quarter of
Let me
the
just get
school. It's
them.
about between 200, 250 kids.
But just to your point, we also want to know more about how many kids are not from our school system who are going
Well,
to
to
that, right?
both,
That's really the.
To both.
Well, right now,
There's
really
there's none,
Yeah.
okay,
Because
I mean, we
will
have,
say-
you know, we have some tuition students, but not necessarily related to that.
right.
You know, we really
I
would
will
like
say
that.
that living this week, I have an 8th grader and living the acceptances for the Monmouth Notion, the Monmouth County vocational schools. I will say they accepted a lot more kids than they normally do. The amount of kids that, I think I know one of the 25 that I knew that, you know, and in my board brain, I know these kids are all extremely smart, so it's great. But in my board brain, I also know that they probably would like to increase their enrollment, to increase their numbers and all this kind of stuff. So I do see the recruitment position as something not just for out of district kids, but also to keep our kids that are applying to these schools in our district.
Yeah,
So
well, that's always been certainly a part of why
So it's
we
just
do this
something
in the
else,
first place
You
too.
know, with this position, I understand the reason not to do it this year, but I think it's something to keep in mind for
Well,
next year. or if
but
it's
you know,
something-
once
yeah.
again, these two positions are in the 2 range. I mean,
Right.
these are things that if our state aid numbers come in better than we anticipate, if some other funding sources, can come through for us, there's a lot, we absolutely, look, there's value in all these
Right,
things.
so
I
those
don't mean to
numbers
say
will
there's
just help
not.
me with that decision later, so if it's something that can be done quickly, that would be,
Mhm.
Yep.
to you.
Shawanda, I think you had your hand.
We
up.
can ask the board if we all want to see that.
Well, can I have Shawanda, I was gonna make a suggestion.
Why would we
and then-
do that?
I mean,
So instead of, and I know that it's not tier 1, but instead of having it go to an immediate or go to a full-time position, is it possible to increase the stipend and have clear objectives, goals? Because we don't want a fluff position. So is it possible to do that?
For which position? I'm
The
sorry.
district supervisor for the Spartan schools to increase the stipend with, measurable outcomes, goals as to where the additional time and money are going before even considering a full-time position.
You mean existing staff, the existing staff
Because
stipends?
you mentioned that there are people who currently
Right.
do a full
Yeah.
stipend.
Yes.
Okay, and so the additional work, I'm assuming, would be in increments. It's not like you're immediately going to work on this September and then by November, we're going to open it up. There's a process for that. So could it be incrementally funded through a stipend, additional funds, because people should be compensated for their time?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think part of the allure, of course, of having the supervisor there is that, it really helps us out with formal evaluations as well, which a stipended person really couldn't do at this point, because they're not serving as an administrative capacity. They're serving more as a operational manager of the programs, which is part of that, which would be part of that function anyway. But, having additional people to be able to do evaluations would certainly benefit the whole team as well. And that would certainly be a great benefit. So the answer to that question is yes, that could certainly be considered. But if we're going to do that in many ways, it makes more sense to try to get the administrator piece in, because we get more for that. You know what I'm saying?
My other question is, what's the current stipend? Does it
Well, there's
spread out over-
a $10,000 stipend for the person who coordinates the Spartan schools.
So you mentioned there were people though, so
Well, we have an existing supervisor who, once again, those people have to be evaluated and things. So the coordinator can't do that in the current role because they're not technically serving as an administrator, as a supervisor. So they can't evaluate. So someone has to kind of oversee that evaluative piece. So we have that, and then we sort of have that person who's doing, that coordinator is doing more of the day-to-day operational function of the Spartan schools. Recruitment, dealing with the advisory boards, working with, our internship programs, and a lot of that
So
that
one
function.
person is getting the stipend, but other people have responsibilities.
As part of their
that one
regular
person
job,
cannot
as
do.
part of their regular job duties,
Got it.
yes, yes.
So it feels like that it feels like that there's two aspects. One is how do you keep kids that are here maybe in the schools, right, and go to the schools, and the other is that we recruit, right? And what's our opportunity? to
Well, if they
recruit?
go, they'll be back. Don't worry. That we get them back a lot.
So Jim, I don't want to, it seems that there should be some kind of ability to make a conjectured forecast on what you were trying to get to.
Mhm.
Right, if you think you can save 10 kids and you're able to recruit 10, then we can view that as 20 kids. And then we can say to ourselves, okay, this is actually now paying for them and 2 other people or something like
Sure.
that, right? So, I mean, does everybody kind of agree? If we had that kind of thinking, right, that you
Mhm.
felt like you can measure against,
Yeah.
then if you provided that to us, that, to me, that would be valuable. That would change it. So do you think that's a possibility for you to get put together?
Sure, sure.
Does everybody
Yeah.
think that that's,
I'd like to make my comment first.
sure,
Now,
make your comment, sure.
This is very dear to my heart. What you were saying before about the vocational schools taking many of our students. When I was in the classroom, we started to recruit in 8th grade. And by then it's already too late. And I made the suggestion years ago, we should go down to 5th grade and start recruiting so that more students stayed in our district. Somewhere I saw a decrease in charter students of 9 somehow in one of the charts. So if 9 fewer students went out to charter schools, that's a start. And I think that, as Jeff was saying, there's a way to make that salary back. If we were to actively recruit for tuition paying students to come to Ocean, and we really sold our Spartan schools, and they are worth selling. They certainly
Agreed.
are. You mentioned Red Bank Regional.
Mhm.
Their visual and performing arts, we've got it. And
Yep.
we certainly could do it. So it might be an investment down the road, something to really bring our, not really pump up our enrollment, but keep our students in Ocean and have fewer, because the vocational schools, they used to take 2 per district. Now the door is open
Well,
wide.
they still do. They take, actually, it's 1 or 2, but then it's a pool of the higher scoring. So it depends on the scores.
There's
but-
like 6 per school this year.
Yeah.
So just to finish, so what we were first talking about was the idea of you putting together a projection
Mhm.
that maybe we could all kind of wrap our heads around on what that means. And obviously you can, if you felt like you wanted to do a conservative, low, high kind of thing. I feel like I'm managing my director of sales at one of my companies. So, but we probably.
Make your pitch.
But that probably would help us kind of.
Do I get a stipend for that title?
Sure, yeah, we can work that in, I guess. So did anybody want to say anything before we kind of just say we interested in that, or?
I just have a question. So I think I missed this. Am I to understand that position, because it's priority 2, we're not anticipating it for the next year, but the following year? Is that what you're saying?
No, what we're saying is, well, the things that are kind of in the 3 are pretty much kind of off
Right.
the table, but the 2s are kind of, they're there, and if there's a way that we could see, like, for example, the preschool supervisor, the preschool is a tremendous, right now, we have someone doing that who also has a number of other responsibilities, and it's a lot, it's very significant. So, but we realistically, if we can't fund it through the preschool grant, where it's not coming out of the general operating budget, that's tough to add, another administrative salary to the general operating budget. I think this position that we're talking about, the other supervisor position, is a similar thing. If we can have a situation where we feel like it's almost not just paying for itself, but perhaps, like if this was a net $5,000, say, $10,000 between what we're currently paying and what it might turn out to be, then that might be worth itself, right? It kind of pays for itself. So,
Okay.
That's why it's sort of in the 2 range, because
But
there's still a
these
few things to
numbers
work out.
do have it being allocated.
In.
Yes, it's in right
Oh,
now.
so
It's
in
yeah,
right now.
it's in right
Okay.
now, but
That's
it's,
all I
but
wanted to
it's,
clarify.
but it's, It's kind of.
It's part of the conversation to
Squishy.
potentially help us
Yes.
close the budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Squishy. Shawanda, did you have
Just to
something?
revisit the art teacher, so, and of course, every position is valuable, et cetera. But when you do look at, before you put $100,000 supervisor in, we can't put in a $15,000 art teacher.
Agreed.
Well, once again,
Agreed.
it's why neither one are really.
No, I know, but
100,
even just the art teacher, it's one of those things like, okay, 60,000, there's a few 60,000 positions there. So to say, well, this one or that one, but if I'm looking at it, it's just a hard pill to swallow. $100,000 position, which yes, could bring in revenue to possibly fund X, Y, and Z.
It won't.
It's almost like, why take away the art when art is for
Well,
some
no, once again, we're not
students,
taking away anything. It's
not funding or not making
Right.
that funding a priority, I guess is how I would say it. It's just something to really consider.
Sure.
Ms. Hayes.
Just to clarify, you said Wanamassa and Wayside art teacher is the same person they share, correct? Wanamassa,
again.
I'm sorry, Wanamassa and TOIS
Fifth
art
grade,
teacher,
fifth
go.
grade.
So Wayside has their own art teacher?
I believe so. I don't think she shared.
I didn't think she did too.
Their own teacher.
So in that respect, I agree with Natalie and Shawanda. I think we're going down a slippery slope of Asbury Park doing away with their art teachers. They have no art anymore this year. Well, they don't, and they have repurposed those teachers to teaching second grade, and they are art teachers.
We have no plans to do that.
I realize that's what we say right now, but I think if we can't find $15,000 to make Miss Pennington or whoever it may be in a few years a full-time teacher, I think we're missing out on great opportunities to provide arts to our students. Secondly, you said 3 sections of grades at Dow are going to be reduced, and I'm not getting it with I see a retirement, an aide, and a teacher, so I only see 2 teachers on that second page, right?
Well,
So,
we have one retirement.
yeah,
So
one teacher
so-
and
so
one
that
aide.
would be one
Yeah.
situation.
Uh-huh,
That's a natural place.
yep,
We have a retirement at Wanamassa. Instead of hiring a new teacher to go to Wanamassa, we can transfer a teacher from Dow Avenue to Wanamassa. That then that's another.
okay, so this list doesn't include all moves, I
All the
suppose,
moves, right.
of
I was kind of talking. through.
rooms.
And then
Okay,
we have multiple openings for special education teachers and, we have a number of dual certified people.
Yep.
Who we could potentially, instead of hiring another special education teacher, we move,
I didn't
Or
get,
a variety, we have a G&T, we have a G&T retirement.
yeah,
Somebody internally could get that position and then that creates an opening, right? So-
I didn't see where that fit. I get that from Wanamassa going, or somebody from Dow possibly going to Wanamassa. I just, and I say this often, being the only Dow parent on this board, we made an investment in Dow. No, I'm a current parent though.
I know. It's
I'm a
just,
current parent. We made a huge investment in Dow and we are just now seeing gains. And now we're gonna rip those gains away.
I don't think we're
And
doing that
I
now.
think it's gonna make a difference. We're gonna see those gains go away.
Once again, I think this class sizes are still going to be under 20 in most instances, which
But that's-
is
I mean,
really good.
We're sending a mixed message to those parents, like, we only cared about you for a couple of years.
I mean, I
And
think, no, I mean. I
we're
think
giving
that's-
you-
I
we're
think
taking away
I
what
think
we gave you.
More, as important as the class size, perhaps even more important as the class size is the instructional approach and what goes on in the classrooms. And I think that remains and that commitment stays. And so, I think
don't
we
think
could all
teacher
agree, I
parents
think
will
we
see
could
it
all
that way.
agree 12 in a class at an elementary school in this stage, in this day and age is very difficult to maintain. I mean, that's a luxury that
I get it,
we just can't.
but
do.
we have one underperforming school that might need special sizes than other schools because that school needs extra
I would
support.
say, it hasn't been done, I haven't seen it in about a year or two, but a couple years ago, there was a survey done of the elementaries in Monmouth County and, the average class sizes were around 25. So, I mean, we are still, even in 19 or 20, we are doing very well with our elementary class sizes.
Okay, Ms. Palamas.
Yeah, not to beat the art topic to death, but is there a way that we can consider at least moving it from a 3 to a 2 so that maybe if something opens up, like the numbers, or we could take a
We
look at
can,
it?
sure, we can consider many things. Absolutely. You know, once again, the only thing I will say is that we have many situations that are 5, 10, 15,000. And we look at, when you look at something like this on a sheet of paper, you go, it's only 15,000, it's only this. But we're $2 million over where we need to be, right? So every little bit helps. And so, yes, at this point, I'm not at a place where we're saying we're going to have this administrator, because how do we justify that, being that far down, right? So I don't disagree with what you're saying from an instructional standpoint. It's just that, like with anything that we always talk about, if you add this, then
Right.
where does it come out? It's got to come out somewhere, right?
Well, the way I see it is a 3 is a no way, but a 2 is.
We can move it into,
maybe,
we can certainly
So-
move that to a 2.
Okay.
Sure.
I think Ms. Hayes had her hand up first, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just had 2 more questions. So I'm not fond of just giving up the BCBA position. I think if we saw a need for it in this district and having one BCBA for 3,400 students, K through 12, right? She services all. If we saw a need, but we just couldn't fill it for whatever reason, could have been our own, could have been there's no applicants. We're just washing our hands of an acknowledged need. I think that's a mistake. So that's a comment rather than a question. Master preschool teacher, where do we stand on that? If our numbers get to a certain level, aren't we required to hire a master preschool teacher in the future?
We have a master.
No, a second one. A second one.
Once it gets to, but I don't think we're close to that.
We're not near
point. I think we're okay
threshold for next year?
I think we're good for, certainly good for next year and
Okay.
at least another year after that.
John?
Well, I have an initial question, a follow-up question. So what was the amount of money that was invested from federal funds into the Spartan schools? Do you know off the top of your head? I know. Wasn't it a federal?
We got
grant?
an initial $500,000 grant.
$500,000 that were initially invested. Okay. And
That grant's now.
that grant's complete. That's done. So there's a $500,000 investment, taxpayer dollars. So I just want to speak my truth here, and I respect everyone's opinion. I think that supervisor should be a priority 1. I think that is something that we need in this district. And I understand there's going to always be an area where we can point out a problem or something like that, or that we're mad that something's not getting in. I totally think that's going to happen. To shuffle this whole thing around. Somebody's going to find those things, but we have an enrollment issue. It's clear. And this is a great way to not only add students to our district, but to also give us an opportunity to do so in a cost-effective way. So I think that should be a priority 1. And I'm happy that we're treating this like a business situation and that we're looking at this expensive taxpayer dollars from a sales perspective. I think that's a great way to do it. I agree that art should not be forgotten about. And this is from an individual who has never been good at that type of thing, and it does not exhilarate me at all, but the studies are there that this is extremely important to the development of children. However, looking at this from our district's perspective and being a steward of the taxpayer dollar, I think that should be a priority 1. I'm happy that it's there. I think it's something that we need to do immediately.
Well, certainly taking all this into consideration, I think next week when we are at our budget only meeting, we're going to know this, we're going to know the state aid numbers. We're going to hopefully have dug down more on some of the other line items and we'll have more maybe information and, we'll be able to, that's what the budget only meeting is about. Because and we say this all the time, I just said it, I'll say it again. First of all, let me make 2 points. 1, I know I just want to be clear. Students would get no less art next year than they're getting right now. So we're not cutting the art program in any way. There's not adding this person, suggesting that, person will be full-time. So it's just be very clear for everyone, listening and in the room. And the second thing is it's all about priorities. And unfortunately, it requires tough decisions. And where something is added, something has to be taken away.
Okay.
And that's just always the way it is. So if we're going to add, we got to be prepared of what we're losing.
Amy.
Okay, real quick, is there a way to, I know you're talking about the supervisor of preschool and that's becoming a big position. And
Yep.
is there a need maybe instead of doing the supervisor of preschool at this time to maybe even just add a secretarial position to help the person who is doing it at the time?
Well, we have
We
a,
did.
we have
We do
a
already
part-time
have-
secretary.
I
in
couldn't
it.
remember if we did. Okay,
Yep.
so that was the first question. And then.
We did that
it's
for this year.
also Another thing that I like to see when I'm looking at the personnel sheet and looking at this is an asterisk or something to show us where benefits are needed. Because again, like normally,
that's a
I
good
know you
point.
mentioned this, that the art teacher already is having benefits. So the $15,000 is really just $15,000 versus 15 plus benefits.
Right.
Because a lot of times when
We
things
can
go
add
from
that.
part-time to full-time, it
It's gonna
Yeah.
be benefits.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can just put
Yeah, that's good.
asterisks next to the ones that would need,
Yep.
like art would not have.
We could do that.
Thank you.
Let me just say one thing about this thing about the district's supervisor for the Spartan schools.
Mhm.
So it is an interesting catch-22 we can get ourselves into, right? We have kids succeed, they get to a certain level, and they don't want to stay at the district and go someplace else, right? So a lot of the work that we're trying to do at the lower level, at some point, we want to make sure we're not messing that up at the higher level, right? The other part is that, Jim, this is, I hate to say this, but the onus is on you to really kind of project this out. And if we were thinking about it in longer term, we would say to ourselves, what did it look like the first year? What will it look like the second year? To see how this compounds itself, right?
Mhm,
Because I would assume that good breeds good. And that helps in whatever we're trying to do. So.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, part of this may be impacted by, I mean, just as an aside, there's an actual lawsuit right now that the Keyport School District has filed against Union Beach. Union Beach, who sends many of its students to Red Bank Regional for their vocational programs. And the outcome of that case may have an interesting impact on a variety of things. So just something to keep an eye on.
okay, well, let's.
Just quickly,
Yeah.
I feel like we are conflating hiring a Spartan school supervisor and person in charge of recruitment with, or equating that with, we will suddenly get new students out of district for the Spartan schools. I don't think this district needs another administrative supervisor. Recruiting could be something that our current administrators could get better at, maybe, I don't know, that we could be promoting these districts' programs better through public relations. We could have recruiting on so many other levels. I don't think we need $100,000 person to recruit a brand new program that's not going to bring in $100,000 worth of students from outside the district. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, well, you'd have to make the case that focus breeds focus.
Yeah.
And you'd have to kind of make that case.
Part of
Right?
the continued conversation.
Okay.
Wait, Jeff, sorry, I have
oh,
one last comment.
Did you text me, Natalie? You had a question?
I
Oh,
did,
missed it.
actually.
Ah,
Pay attention
sorry.
to your phone.
Everybody was impressed. I didn't even look up that. I said, Natalie has a question. Yeah, Natalie.
I just want to say that by asking the questions that I did, I'm not saying that I'm not in support of a supervisor. I don't think art and the supervision of the Spartan schools are mutually exclusive. I appreciate John's comments very much. And to that end, I think it was Shawanda earlier who asked about numbers, and perhaps that could make the district help make a decision that, what would the projections be, Jim, of how many students do you think we could retain? How many students could we get from outside? Kind of what's the ROI on the position?
Yeah.
Because that might help us see that while it's a big number up front, if we can recoup it in 2 to 3 years, then it may be well worth it. So that's just something that I think would be interesting to look at.
Thank you. Okay. Hey, Natalie, how you holding up over there? Still doing all right?
Feel pretty terrible, to be
So
honest.
so I think what we're gonna do, I think we're gonna move to 11. So that we can talk about policy, have a vote on one of the new policies, have a discussion on one of the new policies that we put in place. And then we can have, then Natalie, you can zone out, okay?
Okay.
Grace Ann, could you do number 11?
Sure, we
Thank
have
you.
2 items on the agenda up for discussion tonight. 11.1, Board of Education Administration will discuss the first reading of revised or new policies and or regulations as follows. And 11.2, discussion of the Board of Education Administration will discuss the first reading of policy 0160, board member participation of board meetings using electronic devices as attached.
I guess on 11.1, does anybody have a discussion they want to have on
Yeah,
11.1?
just to give you were given the summary to show what the changes and what the motivations for the changes. This is new policy alert that just came out in January, so these are all recent updates. So,
Okay,
just any questions? on
does
that?
anybody, I mean, we just got these, right? So I'm not sure if anybody has any things
Okay,
to say.
well, this is
here right
first
now.
reading.
I mean, Alex, you had your hand up about that, or?
No, about 11.2, I wanted to make a motion.
Okay. So on the discussion around 11.2, so I rewrote the policy, kind of slimmed it down and kind of try to take into account some of the things that were discussed in the last meeting. And just in summary, it was designed so that if you had a medical condition, a business obligation, or you had something that was, some kind of emergency, that you could still, as a board member, still be able to, participate in the meeting, in the regular workshop, in the regular meeting or the workshop meeting, still be able to vote. But we would not be able to participate in the executive session. And I think I'm also kind of taking this from, one thing Shawanda has brought up is we're all professionals, or we're all adults, and we should kind of go in that direction. And so I'm also going to assume that, or we should, whoever, I would think that we're all going to assume that if somebody does have a business obligation, or does have an emergency, or does have a medical condition, that we're all adults, we're all being honest. And so we're going to kind of govern it in that kind of way, right? So that was the balance that I was kind of looking for based on everybody's discussion, and also some of the discussions I heard from the board presidents about how they do things, and some of our board members in other districts that I've heard. So that's how we got to this. And there was a lot of wording that didn't make sense, so I kind of slimmed it down a little bit. Okay, so saying all that,
Thank you.
sure.
So I just wanted to make just a comment about not being able to participate in the executive session, because according to the ADA, it has to accommodate, make accommodations, reasonable accommodations, but it has to include all the benefits and privileges of all the other members. So that part of it is not in line with the ADA. And I was wondering if the attorney or the school ethics commission has been consulted on that particular piece of this.
That piece was actually not participating in the executive session, was something that was in the prior.
I think that was
policy.
about voting during the
No, it was-
legal part of it.
No, the executive session was in there. It was in there prior.
It was that and voting.
It was that and voting. You couldn't vote. You could not be in the executive session, nor you could vote in either of the sessions. Right, that's what it was in the prior one.
Pre-COVID is what we're talking.
What?
You're talking about pre-COVID though, right?
Pre-COVID.
You're talking pre-COVID.
Right, right.
She's talking now though, right? You're talking now though.
No, she was
I'm
talking
talking
just in
about the
general.
ADA.
Just
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah,
ADA.
and now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
just in general idea. I don't really know the answer to that. I could find out the answer. I guess we could consult with. Do you have an answer to that, or do you know anything about that? I'll check into it.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to postpone this one more week and not make the next week the second reading, but postpone it for one more week until the full board hears from our attorney, and maybe we can ask him some questions about this language?
This would go next week. It would go on the 22nd, right? 'Cause it's-
Right, this would go on the 22nd anyway.
So we would talk about it tomorrow, next week and the 22nd. So we still
Next
have,
week is a budget only meeting.
well, okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we have 2 more readings of this until we talk to our attorney. Does anyone want to
I'll
second
second
that?
the motion.
Well, I don't think we're, I don't know if that's Robert's rules that we're making motions like that. I think
What?
we could take a show of hands without, it's not a motion. We're just taking a straw of hands of.
No, but
who
I
wants to
can,
vote.
I can make a
Yeah, you
motion
can.
and she's
You can.
seconding
Yeah,
it.
I don't know what it says.
So-
But
Do we need to do a roll
What?
call on
I
that?
think you might have to make some motion.
I made a motion.
To table the.
Okay, so
To table
who wants to, let's have a show of hands, who wants to table?
Until we have the attorney in front of the board to ask questions about this policy. That was my specific motion, that we table this until we talk to Attorney Gross in person.
But then do you need 2 readings after, like if we talk to him on Tuesday night, the 22nd, do you then need to? have a
Because what if he
secondary-
says something that's contrary to what's in here, then we'd have to write it
Right, but sometimes,
again.
well, I guess we could, but sometimes, we would just say like approval on the change that Mr. Gross made or whatever, like sometimes we don't.
But we also want to make sure that we're not discriminating against the medically disabled
No, I
either,
understand,
so.
and I understand,
I'd be okay with what you're saying, as long
Yeah.
as we're able
yeah, so I
to
don't know.
amend.
Yeah, so I guess you could just amend it so we to talk to an attorney, but not necessarily say the amount of meetings you need, readings. you need,
Correct.
if that makes
Yes, that
sense.
makes sense to me. I'm okay with that. If we want to amend my motion to talk about this on the 22nd with the presence of our board attorney. That
Well,
better?
Yeah, we wouldn't, I don't think we'd have our presence or our board attorney. We would just have, we would just ask, we would just get there.
No, but that's part of my motion is to request that he's here. That's part of my motion.
Okay, let's vote on the motion.
Okay, so the second was Ms. Talarico, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go for a call, Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
No.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
No.
Ms. McGovern,
No.
Ms. Prolamus,
I'm gonna say no.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
No.
Mr. Weinstein.
No,
Motion does not pass.
okay.
Thank you.
So, so on this point, do we have, anybody have any other comments about what's here? In favor of it, feeling okay about it, or Shawanda?
Has there been, based upon the way it's written now, has there been any consideration given to the fact that there may not be a quorum since 2 board members cannot participate in certain matters? And there was a time specifically when Natalie, myself, and Amy were virtual. Therefore, if that were the case, we would not have had a quorum to conduct the meeting. Has that been considered?
Would you mean like if everybody, are you saying that if everybody here is now remote and no one's here, so we don't have a quorum for an executive session?
A specific example is, from my understanding, you and Ms. Gilman cannot participate in certain portions of meetings that take, of
Oh, I
content
see.
that takes
In
place in
executive
executive session. Based upon that, there were a couple of times in which Natalie, myself, and Amy were all virtual at the same time, including Grace Ann. Therefore, a quorum may not exist. Has that been given consideration in this?
What's the number needed for a quorum? Just to confirm.
You need
Five.
5.
Five.
5 present people.
Five. That has not been given consideration. Yes,
I was just gonna say, a lot of times, we know in advance, like, I mean, there are emergencies, we know in advance if we have a hearing or something where that would take place. That's one thing. I also don't have a problem, or I would like to hear what Michael says about the writing about that. I voted no because I don't need him physically present here, but I would like to hear what he has to say about it.
about which part?
About
idea.
the
Yeah.
executive session part, the point that Grace Ann brought up. I don't have a problem, like, I would like to hear what he has to say, but I don't physically need him here to tell me.
I don't even hear. on the phone.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table this until we can consult attorney
Yes.
privilege. Presence not required. Until we can consult our attorney, presence not required. I'd like to make that motion.
Thanks for better phrasing it. Perfect.
Second, okay.
You meaning not just having somebody talk to the attorney?
I would like
and
us to
tell
be able to consult. So I'm making a motion right now to ensure that we are going to consult our attorney about what was brought up by Mrs. Talarico and to give consideration of the quorum question. I do not need the attorney present to discuss that. I'm making that motion.
To talk to the entire board or to talk to our president or,
The motion is only requesting that he talks to that he's consulted regarding this
Oh,
policy.
that's different.
That's the motion. I don't need him to speak to the entire.
That's different. Are you
I'm sorry,
seconding
I'm
that?
sorry.
though?
Yes.
No.
That's my motion, so that's not second. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second it. It's fine.
Okay, so you're second, so the motion is that we want to talk to the attorney
the
first to
attorney.
find out about the quorum.
About the ADA requirement and the quorum.
ADA requirement and
Yes,
the
sir.
quorum, okay.
And we can't have him on video for 10 minutes. We can't ask him
I'm
to
gonna,
just attend.
I'll look into it. Wait, there's a, yeah, before the discussion.
Before you vote on the motion, then I guess I have been part of a precedent, because when I first came on the board, I missed a meeting for travel. And when I asked if I could participate, I was told I could not participate and did not participate in the executive session of the meeting. So I'm assuming that 2 years ago, when this occurred, this policy was on the books and that our attorney knew about it and that it did not violate the ADA Act. If it did, then I was a victim of the discrimination.
There may
Because
not
I
have
was
been
not
anybody
allowed-
on the
Let her finish, let her
board.
finish, let her finish.
I was not allowed to participate in the executive session.
And there may not have been anybody on the board that needed that accommodation either at that time, so it may not have come up.
But the
So-
language now says for a medical reason, so
Right.
pretty clear.
Right,
But that's
except
still
it doesn't say
under
for
an ADA.
the, right, for the executive session, right? Let me post something, let me post something else. So,
Something's funny, I guess.
so, first of all, I'm gonna go through those steps and I'll make sure I have Jim on the line with me as we go through these steps. Let's just take one other view of this, okay? Let's say that, I talked to Michael, we have a conversation with him. And he says, there's no ADA issue here. And he discusses how the quorum needs to be accomplished, okay? So let's pretend he says, the way you have this written is perfectly okay. Or the way quorums can be dealt with is such as this, right? He gives us that perspective, okay? We incorporate that into something that obviously, because it's not about on the executive session part, it's not about so much whether if he says, look, if you don't have enough people, you can't do it, right? If you do it this way, you don't have a quorum. If you don't have enough people, in advance, this is what you can do, right? Let's pretend he says something like that, right? Is it possible for us to then say that we basically agree that this is okay unless we're told it's not okay? And then we make the proper changes. Is that okay? So John, I'm just, I don't want to mess up your motion.
As long as it's on the floor, I think it should be voted on and then, should move on from that.
From what? You
The
mean?
motion that I put forward is on the floor. It should be voted upon. And then we can move forward to discussing, debating the policy. That's what I
So the
believe.
motion
Well, it
is to
hasn't been
consult
seconded.
the attorney on the ADA requirement as well as the quorum discussion.
Yes,
And what I heard was that you put that word for motion and that Mrs. McGovern seconded. So you want to take a vote? Okay, Ms. Beal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Ms. Gilman.
Yes.
Ms. Hayes.
I'd like him in person to talk to us. So.
So,
That no, abstain.
mm,
is there a third option?
I picked door number 3.
Not vote on.
I mean,
But,
this is a step. So I vote yes.
okay. Mr. McCarthy.
yes.
Ms. McGovern.
Yes.
Mr. Lamas.
Yes.
Ms. Talerico.
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella.
No,
Mr. Weinstein.
No, but we'll,
Motion
so,
passes.
yep, okay, so we'll table this, we'll have the discussion, we'll come back to it. Okay. So Natalie, feel better, have some chicken soup, all right, if you feel like you want to check out.
yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna jump off. Thanks, everybody.
Okay,
Have a
thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Feel better.
Feel better.
Okay, Ms. Gilman, instruction,
Back to
education, and student
I
activities.
only have 2 items this evening for instruction, education, and student activities. 9.1, move to approve the attached memorandum dated March 3rd, 2022, staff professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or will further the efficient operation of the district. 9.2, an overnight trip. Move to approve the following overnight trip request for our Spartan School of Business, Finance, OTHS, DECA students, 14 students going to Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Travel arrangements will be finalized once the board approves this trip. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Beal. Oh, do we
Do you
want
have
to
any
discuss or do we
discussion
want to
on the
vote?
topic?
Is there anything? Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
This is for 9.1 and 2.
correct.
I'll vote yes for 1 and yes for 2.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
We don't have
Ms.
info on it.
McGovern,
Yes.
Mr. Lamas.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella is absent. And Mr. Weinstein.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay,
Personnel.
personnel, right. Ms. Palamas,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move items 10.1 through 10.5. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Truba?
Yes, Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
I'm sorry, I had a question about 10.2, and I know this was discussed previously.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can't
you can't
discuss
discuss
that.
it
yet.
now, John.
So I abstain.
From all of it. or
From
just-
all of them?
I abstain from 10.2. I vote yes for the rest. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Palamas.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes.
Tortorella, absent. Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
okay, we're gonna move to public relations. Ms. Hayes.
That would be me. Please hold. Board of Education and Administration will review the status of progress regarding the board's goals and objectives for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, so just to give some context before Jim starts, so at the end, when we did our board goals at the end of November, December, right, we came up with a bunch of goals. And one of the things that we agreed on was that we were gonna have quarterly updates. So this is the first time we're kind of doing the quarterly updates. And I think as I wrote to everybody that, you know, there's a process to kind of go through them, right? And not everything's supposed to be done and accomplished in the first quarter. But we're gonna put a plan in place. I think I'm gonna work with Jim on dates so that we have this well in advance on when these updates are going to occur. Okay, so with that, Jim, let me hand it over to you.
Sure, thank you. So just a brief update. So number one, just looking sort of at the improvements district communication. I think the focus for us this year has really been, particularly with our communications officer, Ms. Burke, to really focus on promoting the outstanding work of our students, primarily on social media and getting that out on Facebook and ensure when you look at our, I think when you look at our Facebook page, the posts that get far and away the most action are those about students. And I think that's been a significant priority. And that's where we've kind of been, I think, really trying to focus that particularly. Number two, looking at, targeting, improving the test scores and all that. We haven't taken many tests up to this point, but we're about to take the NJ GPA. And I know that that's been a major emphasis at the high school this year to stress the importance of this test, not only with the students, but, with families as well. I think that kind of part of that leads to why we're doing the delayed openings for that. And we talked about that to create the most, optimal testing environment so that kids are testing in the best way possible. and to take that seriously. So I think more to come on that because we're kind of just getting into our testing season and hopefully, we'll see the results of that. As far as the recruitment and hiring of and retaining more diverse candidates. So, just looking at some of the statistics, I guess to say it for all the people that we have hired for the 2021-22 school year, we've hired 79 people in various capacities, all different job categories. And of those 79, 11 or 14% have been people of color or other underrepresented individuals within those job areas. So that gives you kind of a base of kind of what this year has been. And what some of the things that we've done, and we've talked about this, is for certain positions we've reached out more directly to particular colleges and universities. And I've also looked into, and I'm gonna, forgive me because I'm gonna just do a quick search here as we're doing this. I've looked into and I've been in contact with a group called CJ Pride. And that is a group, I'm just getting the acronym, that's what I'm looking up. So it's the Central Jersey Program for the Recruitment of Diverse Educators. And that's an organization that you need to join. And it was kind of too late to join it for 21-22, but it costs $2,000 to join this organization. And I'm kind of investigating right now what that $2,000 gets us, other than just saying that we're a member of this organization. I know one of the things they do is a job fair that you don't have access to unless you are a member of this organization. But I want to reach out to some of the districts. I know there are local districts that are involved in this. And I want to reach out to see if they've done this before and how beneficial it's been for them. So, I think, one interesting thing too, that, I was doing some research that, right now, nationwide, and this, I think, are the latest numbers that are out, I think 17-18 school year, that 80% of classroom teachers in the United States public schools are white, 80% across the board. When you look at a district like ours, where the minority population is somewhere between 25 and 49%, that number is actually 90%. 90% of classroom teachers are white in those areas. So, obviously this is a major problem across the board, having schools look and be as reflective of their populations as possible. So, I think when you kind of do those comparisons, I think we are definitely making progress, but we obviously still have work to do. So, that's kind of where we are. And njschooljobs.com is also doing a job fair, but I don't think it's specific to people of color. And I haven't seen some specific colleges and universities. I've looked, and I think NJCU used to do one. I haven't seen that, but we'll keep an eye out on for that. But I think this CJ Pride organization may be a good avenue, but I think before we spend $2,000 to do this, I want to make sure it's going to be, one, that we have $2,000, and two, that it actually is going to give us, something that will benefit us.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of ADA, the next one relates to, the ADA compliance upgrades for this building. And from what I understand, we're looking to do a lift, right?
Yeah,
For
right here.
at least this
Yep.
hallway here that gets us into from this. So you have a lift that gets you here, and then we'd have a lift that goes here. We're looking to add some restroom facilities on this first level.
Yep.
So that, basically, the other issue though would be the second floor. Now, what we do now is we obviously, if there are people who can get into this room, we come down and we conduct business in here for individuals. So this doesn't necessarily solve a problem. It does solve part of it. I think the bigger question is, once again, the revisiting of the board of the long-term, prospects of this property, this building, if this is the permanent home, or is this, because obviously you don't want to invest an incredible amount of money in making this 100% ADA compliant, bottom to top, if we're only going to be here for the next couple of years, right? So that's where we are with that. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. And then the last one, just talking about, I think we talked a lot about this already, but, our SEL programs, I think we've done so much this year in terms of, what we've done with ESS, the new cooperation with kids, our SEL coach, our programs with Rutgers with their Nurtured Heart Approach training that our 2 individuals are taking part in this week, the train the trainer programs. So lots going on, I think, in that regard as far as SEL is concerned. So there's my quarterly update.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Okay. So just a couple of points. We should probably, I know we've been hectic through a lot of things, so, we'll work at, I kind of threw this at you a little last minute, so we'll kind of figure out how we look at these things a little ahead of time and make sure we talk through these. Just to make sure, Jim, are there any points in here that you feel like are unclear that you wanted to clarify at this point, or do you want to do that kind of?
Yes, there are
Okay.
actually, that I've expressed to you. I think just some of the things around the parent mentoring program piece, number one, I don't know that I've ever been completely clear as to what that was trying to, what that was trying to say. I feel like that might, just looking through it quickly right now, I think, not maybe as much as what it's trying to say, or what the expectation may be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the others, I think are, the others are fairly straightforward, I think. Some more actionable than others, but
Okay.
I think that second part of number one, I think I'd appreciate a little bit.
Okay, all right, I'll talk to you about that.
Okay.
We probably, who's in charge of the, you're in charge of construction?
Yeah, I am. That wasn't actually why I was raising my hand, but yes.
Okay, so.
Yes, I would like to talk to Tina about the ADA part too, because I also, I think more what you're saying with getting the lift from there to there is more because of the bathrooms coming in. Is that more?
Bathrooms and enrollment. So if you
But
ever had a parent.
Can you get a wheel, like, is there access to get into Debbie's office?
Yeah.
If you
Yes.
can, I mean, it's wide.
Yes,
enough.
yes,
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I wasn't sure. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have a lift to go to a hallway.
No,
you
no,
know?
no.
Okay.
And that's also where the special education offices are. So if
Right,
there's
so
any
that's-
students.
And longer term, again, we're working with the chamber. I mean, the township has told us that eventually they would like to co-locate in one of their facilities, which I would think is going to be within a year, based on some of the
So
conversations
maybe
that we've
I
had.
can meet with you and I can sit down and talk about some of the things we discussed, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say that we should just determine if we're going to be this calendar year really looking at this building, right? And what it is and what's going on. So it doesn't have to be, we don't have to do this the first half. We could do it. I'm gonna talk a little bit about a retreat later, so we could talk about it later and have, you can get people's feelings about it, or you can do it sooner than later. Right, I would just pick a time when we start actually chipping away at that. Okay. Yes, Ms. Gilman.
Just a comment about number one. At last night's strategic planning meeting, one of the common threads was communication. And whether it was our website or where things are posted or flyers.
Well, for two people, it was the strength. For one group, it was a weakness. So,
It was a
Yeah.
mixed bag, and maybe it's the parent mentoring program that is a bit confusing, but I know that speaking with you about community mentoring,
Yeah.
maybe changing parent to community mentoring programs might clarify things or open it up a little bit, but at least at my table, communication was mentioned as a challenge. In particular, a parent wanted to email a teacher and was sent from link to link, and just easily listing the teacher with the email address right next to it, as some websites do, might be just a user-friendly way to. So I know you want to just tweak number one, but
Well,
communication is important.
well, actually, on number one, because that sentence was something that I kind of wanted in there. So what happened was, my feeling, and it came out yesterday in the strategic meeting where somebody said that they would like a little bit more help on how to take advantage or how to navigate their kid through the school system or something. It was something like that. I can't remember the exact line. So my feeling has been that there are family dynamics in our community where it may be, single parents, parents that work at night, they don't know how to stay engaged with don't have the time or ability to stay engaged with their kids. And how do we help them how do we help them figure out ways to help them steward their kid through the school system? And so I think that, so I thought that the real essence of that is that we should have some strategy on how to coach parents on strategies and understand their challenges on what and how to help them see warning signs or, how to reinforce things to
Sounds
help
like
them.
having a parent advocacy group of maybe, like, I'm becoming an older parent in the sense that my kids are gonna be in high school, right? But I can remember what it was like transitioning from middle school, grammar school to middle school. So it's almost like PTA, maybe even the PTAs, like the high school, and the middle school, like things like that. I also thought that when we talked about this, that we talked about like Power School, for example, is something that people can't navigate. Now, Power School is going to be new, so it's not going to matter. But like things like that doing a seminar maybe at the beginning of the year on, which we'll probably have to do anyway next year because we're going to have a new system. But being able to explain to people how to use our platforms.
So can I go?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt myself, it's just, I want to give myself the gavel. So I think those things like Power School and Genesis training, those kind of things, I think those are fairly straightforward. They might be, look, I'm not saying it doesn't take work to do, or it's not, but it's really like very quantifiable, right? You can say, okay, let's teach them this, and they learn how to do this. I think it's more about, I think the dynamics of this is a little bit more complicated, right? It's about, figuring out how you create rhythm with your kid on how you do homework and, how you help, how do you create dinner tables or, and what those discussions look like and just kind of coaching parents on the school side, not how to be better parents, right? But how to coach them on being, on the educational side to that. So that was my thought. Okay. And I know, and I know all parents, have a lot to do and a lot to think through. So that was my thought. And really it was more about the dynamics of how people are today with multiple jobs and, English as a second language and all those kind of dynamics, what those things kind of entail. So, okay, let's have a motion now. What do you want to say, Alex?
Well, being that we're still in public relations, I just wanted to know when the Public Relations Committee could meet with Dr. Stefanowitz to have another quarterly meeting. And that probably might even go along with some of this number one, I don't know.
Could be.
We were gonna start to have quarterly meetings, remember? And we had our meeting in October, I think, last time. So maybe we can chat about a date. And then also, when is our next public relations presentation from the district?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, the first one, I mean, I'm sorry.
So you go, you can
Okay.
answer it, Jim.
Once again, our committees are committee of the whole. If the board deems that the Public Relations Committee wants to meet separately, we can certainly do that whenever you'd like. Just send me some dates. I mean, I can tell you right now, we're in significant budget mode. So I mean, the next couple of weeks are very, very busy, but certainly can throw out some dates and times. And
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
saying right now, we're in
I'm aware. I
high
know.
budget mode, so, but you can throw out some dates and times and we can come up with a convenient time. And then really, I was kind of waiting till we were kind of through at least the preliminary budget. So I would say, Fran would be good to come back in like first meeting in April, I think.
Great.
Because once we're through budget, once we focus on budget, then we can kind of go from there.
Great. Is that okay?
All right.
I hear you, thank you.
Okay, great. Was there any comments about any of these other goals or Dr. Svenkowitz's discussion on any of these? Anybody wants to ask or talk through?
You know how we list on the goal?
Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't see anyone raising their hand. You know how we list in like italics in the agenda what goal it goes under? Are we still doing that? You know how like,
Strategic goal, says strategic.
We've done the strategic planning goals.
oh, that's strategic
That's
planning, not,
strategic. These are,
Okay, okay.
these are our yearly goals that we had. I'm gonna talk about this,
Okay.
but
okay.
I think one of the challenges, we did this at the end of November, beginning of December, right? I'm gonna talk about that in open.
That's cool, okay.
What we want to do next. Anybody else? No? Okay, cool. That means good. Okay,
Old business.
cool. All right. Cool, okay. Any, I think that's it. Any old business? Oh, there's like a tie for first. Grace Ann.
I have two questions. So 10.2 regarding the curriculum writing, how can we or the parents review any of the revisions that are going to be made? Are they on a link for standards?
All approved curricula, well, are you asking as a parent or as a board member?
For parents, as board members, both?
Well, that's
Why does it matter?
two things.
I mean, I'm asking as a board member and as
As a
for
board member,
parents.
when you approve a when you approve new curriculum, you typically you would see that and vote, as you vote on that new curriculum.
There was nothing attached though.
Well, this year, just approving the people to write the
Oh,
curriculum.
because it said it was based on standards. I wasn't here last week, but I thought if it's based on standards, there must be standards written.
There are New Jersey
Right.
student learning standards.
So is there a link for that for
Yeah,
parents
they're
to
on the Department
review?
of Education website. I can send them to you if you like. Send you the link.
I mean, I think one of the strategic planning, goals from, when was it? I don't even know the days anymore. Yesterday was that they wanted to be more involved in reviewing curriculum and looking at
Transparency.
yes.
And all our curriculum is on the
Which is
website to be reviewed. Every curriculum we have is on the website.
But I'm talking about the revisions for the new standards. That's all.
John.
I'm sorry, there was two questions.
Oh, yeah, two.
So the second one was, when will we be having the meeting regarding Robert's rules and the rules responsibilities that we
I'll
had talked
talk about
about back
that
in
as well.
December?
I'll talk. Oh, are we in open session? We're in open business.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, so I was thinking that we were gonna, first off, the Robert's rules, we're not gonna run this as a military kind of thing. I don't think that's, I don't think we're gonna run it, I don't think we're gonna run it like that, right? It's, I spoke with other people. That doesn't-
I agree,
that
it
doesn't fly in
sounds
this kind of
good,
thing. It gets a little crazy. So I'm thinking that I was talking with Shawanda about a retreat thing that we want to do. So I think what we were going to do is maybe talk about this in the retreat and figure out, the structure we want to have around Robert's Rules of Order and how we want to conduct business meetings and board meetings and stuff like that. So I thought that we would do that when we had our retreat and discuss that. I'm not in favor of bringing our attorney in or hiring a consultant to come in and explain Robert's Rules of Order, right? I think there is a natural flow we can grab here, and I don't think we need that level, okay?
So who would be facilitating that?
Well, I'm not sure, I'm not really sure yet. I'll have to think about it and figure out how we should do this, but that's my opinion.
And when will that be?
The retreat, I'm not sure yet. We'd have to pick a time and a date and, yeah, it's typically in the summer, yeah, typically in the summer, yeah. By the way, so just to follow that up, I think that in the summer, when we do have the retreat, I think we should do the board goals at that time. I think the board goals to start the beginning of the year is a much better concept. Yeah, and self-evaluation, right? I think that's a good process for us to do before we get to the start of the school year. I think having these board goals, when we do them at the November to December, is not that great. And we also get into this mode where these people aren't going to be on the board in 6 months and in 2 weeks. So why are those goals and kind of important, right? Because we're about to have elections and all that stuff. So I think we should move the concept of board goals, retreat, self-evaluation into a summer session. That's my That's
And
my thinking.
before we do this and get the date down, we can have a discussion about a consultant. Because I
Um,
think it should be a board discussion since it's a board of a whole.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Italy?
Italy, Italy for the
Sounds like
afternoon.
Boca Raton.
John, I think she.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
for a parent, for clarification, for a parent who's concerned about curriculum, I'm under the impression that every single class has curriculum posted on our district website. That's correct, right? Okay, thank you.
You still want to-
Finding
I
it.
have a wellness committee.
I was
Another
told that-
Oh, you have a wellness committee. report.
Finding it.
Okay.
I do, so if you want to.
Just go under teaching and learning and hit
Do you
curriculum.
want to, better do a wellness committee? You want to go? Do you
But
wanna-
if you're a parent,
I
I'd go to
thought I
parent.
had my hand up.
Yeah.
as one of the first
Yeah.
people.
Oh, she was, yeah, but then she kind of, yeah, yeah, Shawana.
Let John go.
So the first point about the parliamentarian as far as training, I understand, believe the comment was mentioned, we pretty much follow Robert's 80%, which is a fair percentage.
Yeah.
However, if we're going to steer in a way of having something more formalized or changed, in my opinion, it would be helpful, for example, the president of the Monmouth Ocean County unit of the National Association of Parliamentarians provide a complimentary training so that we don't get, well, this is what we do here. This is how we do it. This is how we've always done it.
Mhm.
Let's get a professional certified to come in to address what we want them to address. So if we don't care about subsidiary motions or that, they don't have to. But I think that we should take a poll to see what are the topics per Roberts for our meetings that we want to hear. So this way, we're getting a certified professional and not, well, this is how we do it here. I think that that will help to make things less subjective. So that was the first part, to address that, which if it happens over the summer, so be it. But the associate, even if it's not the president, that association has parliamentarians that are looking to provide complimentary trainings because it also helps keep their tools sharp. So that would not be a consultant fee. And also, they are certified, so they are knowledgeable and they have passed the test to become part of the National Association. Then the second part is totally shifting gears now, but still part of old business. For the conversation with Mr. Gross, for board members who want to participate in that conversation, can they? And the reason why I ask is because during my training, Mr. Gross mentioned specifically, if Ken and Jim will close their ears, I would never tell a board member they cannot call me. So for transparency, for those members who would like, and please do not rearrange any schedules, schedule your meeting anytime that you would, but provide that opportunity for those of us who would like to participate, because I know how a meeting is handled when you do not have a quorum. You don't have the meeting. So I don't need Mr. Gross to tell us, well, if you don't have a quorum, you don't have your meeting. It's more so the impact of that policy. Is that a wise move when you have two board members who cannot participate in certain sessions? And history has shown that we have had multiple people need a remote option.
Okay.
So is it possible for those board members who?
Well, I'm
would
gonna
like to
talk to them. I'm gonna talk to them. What was the,
Is there the opportunity for those board members who would like to, because you said you and Jim were going to talk with Michael.
yes, correct.
Is there the opportunity for transparency for those board members who would like to join that call whenever you schedule it? And if we can make it, we can make it. If we can't, do not rearrange anything. For those board members who would like for transparency to be a part of that conversation, since according to Michael Gross, at our training, I would never tell a board member they can't call me. He did clarify you should go through your board president,
Right.
et cetera. But if Ken and Jim will close their ears, any board member can call me. So for those who would like to participate, may we join that call? And
Right.
those who do
Well-
not worry about it at all.
Yeah, well, we had the motion that we just had before, right? And we said, I would do that with Jim. I could talk to Michael and find out what what that means and what that entails and,
Why do,
My question is, because John's motion, yes, was about you talking with him,
yes.
but it did not exclude anyone. So my question is, for those
I'm
who
gonna-
would like to join the call, may we?
I don't know. Yeah, sure. Sure, go ahead. You want it?
Mr. Gross is going to be with us next week.
Oh, okay. All right, we can.
I just think it might make more sense.
Sure,
just to
Mr.
have
Gross.
that conversation.
Sure. All right, good.
I
Great.
can't hear, I'm sorry.
Mr. Gross is gonna be with us next week because of a hearing.
Okay, I didn't hear.
Right, so you might have to move that other thing up.
Maybe
15 minutes, yeah,
Sure.
okay.
That's a good one.
Great, good suggestion.
Thank you.
Forgot all about it.
Every now and again.
Okay,
Takes care of it.
thanks.
Thank you for your suggestion.
And just Shawanda, thanks for
Great, thank
the email to that person, and I planned on calling that person. I just haven't had a chance yet. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Alex?
he looked right at you and then called me, because he knows I have like 17 more to go.
Yes. sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Last week on March 3rd, we had our wellness committee meeting. One of the big things that I want to harp on is that I'm loving, and I know Grace Ann had loved this too, the collaboration that the elementary schools are having this year. There's not, you know, a special day happening over here without it happening over there. Everybody's pretty much doing very similar things. So SEL Day is on March 11th. There is, what?
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. And they're all participating in Random Acts of Kindness and all different things. They're all reading the same book, all the elementary schools. So there's a lot of really fun things happening. TOIS and the high school similarly are doing a lot of the same things. So everybody's there's a lot of good collaboration. The Tina Conti, our SEL coach, has been creating a lot of mindful movements. They've been doing a video, again, collaboration through all the schools where there are students and staff members, I believe, doing part of this video that's going to be released. It's going to be shown on SEL Day on Friday. So there's different kids from everywhere. Mr. Pringle has been helping out with that. Tina's been going to all the different schools, doing breathing exercises, OTHS. She was doing yoga around, and if you haven't taken yoga from Tina Conti, it's an incredible class, always. And she does, she's been going and giving yoga. Our equity coach, oh, and by the way, her, as Jim said before, her and Allison Connolly have been in the Nurtured Heart Approach training all the last couple of weeks and doing the, now they're doing the Train the Trainer, which is great. So they're going to be able to turnkey that. They are continuing to see, unfortunately, a lot of what they've been concerns that they've been addressing this year have been a lot of anger. There's been a lot of racist comments. There's been there's students actually also looking to address these concerns. So there's been a lot of outreach from students to Ms. Connolly to students. Ms. Connolly said she was very busy during Black History Month and had a great, went into so many classrooms district-wide to do some lessons there. We talked about the kids' assemblies, Dr. Spankwitz talked about. There were some great opportunities about grant discussions from Ms. Rabone and Ms. Todd that we talked about. We also talked a little bit, or not a little bit, we talked about, Tina had talked to, Ms. Conti had talked about the SEL curriculum. I know we all have spoken about the SEL curriculum. Many points were discussed about it. She found one she thinks she likes, but in looking through all these things, it seems that she and Ms. Connolly have also thought that Ms. Connolly's already establishing a website for teachers to be able to go to and pull curriculum from and pull lessons from throughout the day. They've talked about putting their efforts together, as they are so much lately, and creating a website and creating their own curriculum, because it seems that, you know, we talked about the fact that we're paying almost $200,000 to these two new positions that have been brought in that have been doing excellent work, then now to pay for something that is already being created every single day and more than we will get from some of these SEL curriculums. That was one of the things. Also, Ms. Todd, Grace Ann, to something I know we've talked about before. Ms. Todd has also talked about, she has a Google Doc similar to the one that you created for parents that she was also gonna share with the committee, that Anthony was gonna share with the counselors. And so that was something great too. So it was a great meeting. We have another one. I don't have the date on here right now, but we do have another one in about 6 weeks. And you know, it's very, I was saying, I did make the comment to them that we all are loving like all these SEL days and stuff. But I said it was during the same week as Dr. Seuss week that we had this meeting. And I said, I'm seeing so many things on Facebook about all these parents, and I'm talking like friends of mine that live around the country, right? That are all complaining about the dress up days all the time. And I said, and I feel like whenever we get on here, it's like, oh, you guys had another SEL day. This is great. And it's awesome. But I'm like, I feel that you guys probably think the way, feel the way the parents think, but luckily they did not. They all were, you know, but it was good. But I will say that my favorite part of what has been going on is the collaboration, because I do feel like, as you've talked before about, you know, Dow doing different things, and it's just been really, really nice to see everybody getting the same, you know, things across the board. So
Awesome.
that's been great. So it was a great meeting. If you have any further questions, please reach out to me.
I will. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I missed.
No, you were doing important work as well.
I was doing my own
important.
LCL.
Yeah, exactly.
Different stuff. So, can I just say one thing about the DECA convention down in Atlantic City?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
It was phenomenal. I mean, it was a phenomenal event. The kids they learned such invaluable business skills. I was so impressed. I was a judge for 3 days and it was an amazing experience. If anybody, you know, and a big shout out to Mr. Clone and Miss Diza. They're wonderful down there. I mean, it's a very safe convention center. They had security at every, you know, opening, every exit. I just really loved my time down there. So I was very, very happy. And I just wanted to, you know, let everybody know that.
Great. Great. Anybody have any other things for old business?
Yeah, what kind of
Alex?
sandwich is that? Cheese sandwich?
Yeah.
Smell.
This
More
is,
closer.
this is a question more for Tina. I was looking online for corrective action plans prior to the ones, you know, that the people presented today. I found one for 18 and 20, but I did not find one for 2019. So I'm wondering if anyone.
You might not have had one.
Okay. I mean, they
We
don't
haven't had a correction.
previous one
They had
said,
last year. They had one. That's why.
I mean, it said none for all of them, but we're just
I can
missing.
go back and look, but if it's
Okay.
not there, you don't always have them.
Okay, but yeah, even if it says nothing,
Right.
there were a PDF. Okay, and then just for point of reference real quick, how many deaf or hard of hearing students do we have in this district? Since we voted on something, like, is it like 3 or is it like 20? I'm just curious.
I'd have to check. I don't know. off the top of my head.
Okay,
Anybody have any other questions? Any other comments on old business? We need some water.
Do you mean like formally designated as such, or? like,
I'm
in other words,
assuming.
our special services
Yeah.
department, like they're classified?
I mean, I
as
assume
being-
we only give services to folks that are,
I mean, there may be some students who
That's
have
what I know.
issues that they're not classified. They just may
That's good to
require
know.
accommodation of sitting in the front of the room or something like that.
okay.
Any new business?
I just want to congratulate Mr. Lamardo and the 8th grade basketball team selfishly for winning the Run for the Roses tournament. It was very exciting. I do have a son that plays on it, but for a first-year coach who has really not ever coached basketball before, played it, you know, but was a football player and a football, you know, that went to college for football, the way that Mr. Lamardo rallied this team and the way that he supported this team and the excitement that he has on the sideline was really exciting to see as a young coach that is new to coaching in the district. So it was
Nice.
Yeah,
very
it's
cool.
great.
And the support of the students that came as well as administration. It was very cool to be in another gym doing really great things. So
Nice. Any other new business? Sure.
Mine is kind of, I should have asked this in old. And this is an email I sent, I think in the last month, and I wish Natalie was on because she was asking for the same information too. On December 14th, the safety committee met, and you said you were going to get pricing for systems like the Raptor thing that I wish we could get, or anything similar, being that we're in budget talks. And maybe we don't even need to dip in our budget, we can just have a grant pay for it. But so I'm just wondering if we can get an update on that, like, did we ever get any prices or quotes?
Yeah, we had my call, investigate that, and, that certainly could be part of our discussions next week, absolutely.
We're gonna bring up
Yeah,
specific.
well, next week, we're gonna look into some of those other types of things
Okay,
that have been asked and things that we've looked at.
okay, that's helpful to know.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry. So next year we have to have a high school member on the Board of Education. Are we like making plans to discuss that with high school students? Did you all read that? It's now state law that there has to be a high school student, a non-voting high school student as a member of every New Jersey School Board Association.
for next school
So-
year,
I'm sorry?
for this coming school year.
Yeah, for starting September. So I just think we should have that
Great.
on our radar
Great,
so that we don't
That's
just tell them September 1st.
that's cool.
Yep.
Okay, I think we'll go to public comment. So would anyone from the public like to make a comment on any topic at this time? I don't see anybody here. Ms. Conway, anybody remotely that would like to make a comment?
No, President Weinstein, there are no commenters.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Conway. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Motion meeting's adjourned. Everybody have a nice night.